like to call a special meeting of the Paradise Irrigation to order at 6:30 p.m. on April the 8th, 2014. Please stand with me and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A roll call, please.
Director Caldwell?
Here.
Vice President Hunt?
Here.
President Duncan?
Here.
Director Fletcher?
Here.
Director Kellogg?
Here.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is approval of the consent calendar. Does anyone wish to have anything removed from this? Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. Go ahead.
I move we approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Public participation. Individuals will be given an opportunity to address the board regarding matters not agendized, not scheduled on the agenda. Although the board cannot take action on any matter not on the agenda, comments will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Opportunity for public comment on agenda items will be provided at the time they are discussed by the board, with comments limited to 5 minutes per agenda item. Is there anyone who'd like to speak about something that is not on the agenda? Please come forward so we can record it. Give your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Warren Harvey. I just feel that I'd be remiss unless I stood up here and reminded you there's not very many people in the crowd tonight, but because of the meeting being moved ahead, most people that I know had already planned on going to the town meeting over the widening of the road and the half a cent tax. So I just thought I'd want to be sure to bring that to the attention of the board. So it's not that people are not interested, it's that some of them had previous commitments. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close this portion of the meeting and go to, since there's an old business, to new business. PID Water Conservation Committee, Director Fletcher. Consider recommendations from the Water Conservation Committee to appoint Jerry Menden to represent the committee as a member of the public. Did you want to handle this, Doug?
Yes, I'd be very happy to handle that, Mr. President. Jerry Menden, who I'm sure doesn't really need an introduction here, is one of the leading nurserymen that you'll ever be able to find. He helped us on our Wise Water workshop, although he wasn't a participant up here in the front, but he handed out some information and talked about what they do on a daily basis to every one of the customers that go through their nursery down there on Foster Road. And he expressed an interest in being part of the committee, and I feel the committee felt that he could really do a lot for the committee as far as his expertise is concerned. So I would really appreciate that we would appoint him. And so I move that we appoint Jerry Menden as a member at large to the Conservation Committee.
I'll second.
Good, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? How many people does that make on the committee now?
Well, there would be three at large. Four at large. And then we have staff and Sep and I.
So what's at large? That means public members?
Yeah, public members.
And, I have a question about what the right number is. What if we all had a person we wanted to nominate to go onto the committee? Are we just going to allow unlimited public members on committees? I mean, we don't have any rules against it, so I just wondering what.
And I personally value their input, and I think Sep and George will both agree with me on that. The public members that we have on there are really doing a tremendous amount for conservation for the district. One of the members is a very highly regarded professor at Chico State in the ag engineering water area, and he is already on the emails come up with a couple of suggestions to help the John Q. citizen monitor the water they're putting on the yard. And
Is he a resident of Paradise?
yes,
Is
they're
he?
all residents of Paradise.
And you talked to, I presume you did, you talked to Jerry Minden, and he's willing to serve?
Yes, I visited with him. And then I worked with him for maybe 3 or 4 hours on that WaterWise program, just as a business person, nurseryman in the town. And he has incorporated a tremendous amount of in his daily sales of
Well,
water conservation.
In regard to clearly what his expertise is, I think he would be a valuable member for that committee.
Very much so.
Being the committees cannot take action, I have no problem with them outnumbering the people. Yes, the members.
I'd just like to add that they all bring a different level of expertise or a different area of expertise. And if we got too much duplication, then I'd probably point it out to the board that maybe that someone might need to wait until an opening. But
Okay.
they all have different background and experience to bring to the table.
I think that's a very positive statement, George, on that. And I think it's safe to say that we had an exceptionally profitable WaterWise workshop for our larger users that we planned way back when we first formed the committee. And that one of the key reasons is because of the committee's involvement. And they're still thinking, you know. In fact, I was getting emails from Michael Speece, who I was talking about, the professor at Chico State, that at 2 o'clock on Sunday morning, I wasn't answering him until Monday or yesterday, but anyway. So he's doing something at 2 o'clock in the morning with his emails. He must not have much to do.
Okay, does anyone in the public wish to address this subject?
I'm
See?
delighted you're getting the public involved, and you're choosing wisely. Thank you.
That's Loretta Griffin, for the record. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes
Thank the board
5-0.
for making this appointment.
Okay. Wetlands and opportunity for the future, presentation by Director Kellogg. Comments from Director Kellogg on using the constructed wetlands proposal to the process water recycling project. And I've been assured that you will take no longer than 10 minutes. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Very good.
You started the clock, Georgiana? Good evening. Thank you all for coming. This is a real important thing that we're doing, or we're going to attempt to do, and we have choices to make tonight. I pushed for constructed wetlands as one of our choices. We have it as one of our choices. And the interesting thing about these, they can meet the NPDES permit that is part of the proposal to get rid of, and I don't think that's necessary or a good decision. Almost all the sewage plants in the state have to have NPDES for their operation. And if we ever lost water because of an accident or something else into the lake or the pond or the creek and we didn't have the permit, we would be in big trouble. It's a low-cost system to operate. The way it's done in this particular case is mostly downhill, gravity-fed. There is some pumping involved. And it is a small area compared with the others. So it's a low cost to operate. There's no mechanical things in it to break down, have to be repaired or maintained. And there's no really high energy costs going with it, which would go with the other plan we have tonight. And it's proven technology all over the USA. If you look on the internet for it, you'll find the EPA strongly supports them, and they're established all over the country, at least 3 to 6 or so in California. Most of them deal with sewage, which is a much worse product than what we're dealing with here. And these go back to the 1990s when they started, 80s before that, and then it just has gone along to now it's an accepted process to use in water treatment, whether it's for sewage or, in our case, drinking water. Now, they're called constructed wetlands because they're not natural. They're constructed by engineering design, and it seems that each site that I've looked at has an individual design, depending on the topography, the water situation, whether they're dropping into a bay or into freshwater situations. So they all have individual designs like we have here. They also have long life of operation. 20 years is not a long time in many things, but I noticed in the other process we're looking at, there was talked about 15 years. 20 years is not unusual for a wetlands to need any kind of major maintenance work done to it. Of course, it depends on the particular wetlands, but it isn't. Then the monies that was raised for these different wetlands came from farm credit sources, EPA, environmental groups that got on the thing, because this thing is very green to the community, and they supported it financially and politically in the areas where these were first established. So, you know, it goes back again. Several in California for sewage treatment. Wow. And they do a job where they can have the NPDES permit without a problem. And they're maintained. So, and there's several of them that are used for towns the size of Paradise. The approximate population we have and the amount of water we handle. So it can be fit into the size here, into our needs by design. A constructed wetland, I'll bring back again. Mr. Ron Pride, who's sitting in the audience tonight, we'll talk about him later and the engineering and everything else. And he's come up from Davis tonight to present his design. Now, why not a wetland? You save on capital costs. They cost less. Regardless of the figures that are submitted tonight, they do cost less on capital costs. They're low-cost operation, the work, and you can use an NPDES permit with them and not have problems with other things. So this is what I wanted to talk to you about. This is what I wanted to hopefully start you with, a positive outlook for constructed wetlands.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda, process water recycling project. Manager Barber.
Yes, thank you. We're going to start with some presentations. We've got representatives from Lee and Rowe and from Brown and Caldwell, and they've kind of worked out who's on first and who's on second. So they'll make presentations on their reports and the projects, different evaluation opportunities for the project. Just a sec, and I'll get his thing up. Sorry.
is here from Brown and Caldwell, and together with the alternatives I'll present, Ron will be presenting 3 additional alternatives for wetlands technology. And I'll be followed by staff who will summarize project costs and recommendations for the next step. As a byproduct of the water treatment process, operation of the water treatment plant produces wash water, which requires additional treatment before being discharged. Currently, wash water is pumped off-site to backwash ponds located on the east side of Skyway Road, opposite of the treatment plant. Solids in these ponds are currently settled and removed on an annual basis and allowed to go out. The clarified decant water is discharged back to Magellia Reservoir. Discharge to the reservoir is regulated by the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board under a permit under the Clean Water Act. The district's current permit is set to expire in 2015, and the regional board has indicated that a renewed permit will contain limits for aluminum and dichlorobromomethane that cannot be met by using the existing backwash ponds. Consequently, the existing washwater system must be modified to either eliminate or reduce these constituents from returning to the reservoir. With this in mind, our project goals are as follows. We analyzed options for the treatment of washwater. We examined alternatives which would allow treated washwater to be recycled back to the treatment plant, thereby conserving the district's valuable raw water supply. And by recycling water back to the treatment plant, it allows the regional board permit to be discontinued, which would avoid future compliance and sampling costs, and also eliminates the risk of accidental noncompliance, which can result in penalties being assessed. The development of the Alternatives Evaluation Report, or AER, has been a collaborative and iterative process with district staff and has progressed over the course of several versions of the report now. The preliminary version of the AER was first issued in February of last year and originally only looked at reconstruction of the existing washwater ponds. The second draft version of the AER, prepared in September of last year at staff's request, included two additional alternatives that looked at replacing the existing washwater ponds with concrete clarification basins. In the earlier version, in this draft version of the AER, an equalization capacity was provided to buffer washwater being returned to the plant. This capacity in the September version was 1 million gallons. The final draft of the AER was prepared in December of last year and then finalized last month with comments from staff. The most notable change from the September to this most recent version was an increase in equalization capacity from 1 million to 2 million gallons. Also, as Director Kellogg noted, since our last project updates at the request of the district, we've worked in conjunction with Brown and Caldwell to prepare 3 additional alternatives to look at wetlands technology as an alternative method for treatment. The Alternatives Evaluation Report looked at 3 alternatives to meet project goals. Common to all 3 alternatives were clarification of washwater to separate solids, washwater equalization, and solids to water. One of those we wanted to discuss a little bit more was why equalization is needed. The production of washwater is periodic and flows can vary depending on a number of factors. Washwater recycled back to the treatment plant must be returned at a steady rate so as to avoid upset of the treatment process. And there's also a need to keep the recycle rate back to the treatment plant less than 10% of production, so at times when washwater is being generated greater than 10%, it must be stored until the washwater rate is lower than 10%. As the Alternatives Evaluation Report has evolved, equalization has become a significant factor in cost and scope of the project alternatives. The most recent March version of the Alternatives Evaluation Report recommended an equalization capacity of 2 million gallons. This is an increase in equalization compared to the prior version of the report, which led to an increase in project cost for several of the alternatives under consideration. Equalization criteria was based on a maximum washwater recycle rate of 10% of plant production, and sizing was based on 2 worst-case scenarios, which were a dramatic shift in weather followed by a drop in water production, and also a watershed impact such as a fire, which would be followed by a storm event that would require aggressive flushing of the plant filters and clarifiers and accumulate backwash very rapidly. So just a quick little explanation about the sources of wash water. Wash water is generated from 3 sources at the treatment plant. These are flushing of the absorption clarifiers, backwashing of the gravity filters, and filter to waste flushing, which is an initial period after the filter backwash is complete, which allows the filter to settle down before being brought back into service. As shown in the pie chart to the left, the flushing of the absorption clarifiers, which is 77% of the backwash, is the largest generator of wash water by far. Currently, raw water is used for the clarifier flushing, but as I'll discuss in the next few slides, we've also looked at using treated wash water for this purpose. With all the alternatives being considered, equalization of wash water is required. There is an existing wash equalization tank in use at the treatment plant. However, for most of the alternatives considered, it's too small. So Ron will explain the wetlands alternative separately, but to explain the 3 alternatives in the alternatives evaluation report, I'll just quickly summarize them as: Alternative 1 would consist of reconstructing the existing backwash ponds and construction of a 2 million gallon equalization tank. Alternative 2 would be, in lieu of reconstructing the wash water ponds, a concrete wash water clarification basin and again, a 2 million gallon equalization capacity. And alternative 3 would be similar to alternative 2 with concrete clarification basins, but they would be sized larger so that the majority of wash water could be used for flushing of the absorption clarifiers instead of using the raw water for that purpose. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the wash water from clarifier flushing represents the majority of wash water being generated, and to be able to recycle this during the flushing process greatly decreases the equalization requirement and also the costs for alternative 3. Just to kind of make it a little bit more easier, the report contained a number of detailed figures and site layouts, but just to kind of look at them side by side, we prepared the attached figure to graphically illustrate the differences between the 3 alternatives in the report. So again, alternative 1 would be a reconstruction of the existing solids ponds and a 2 million gallon equalization tank. In this alternative, solids collected at the bottom of the wash water ponds would be removed on an annual basis and hauled to the landfill. Alternative 2 would differ from alternative 1 with, instead of reconstructing the wash water ponds, there would be concrete clarification basins and again a 2 million gallon equalization tank. In this alternative, solids would be pumped to a storage tank and mechanically dewatered and hauled off on a weekly basis. For alternative 3, as I discussed in the previous slide, the clarification basins would be sized much larger, and so that treated backwash water could be used for absorption clarifier flushing. That's shown by the second larger arrow here on the right. And as you can see from this alternative, there's no equalization tank or no additional equalization tank. And so by returning the wash water to the treatment plant, it eliminates the need for an additional tank. Similar to alternative 2, solids for alternative 3 would be pumped to a storage tank and mechanically dewatered and removed on a weekly basis. I think I got stuck now.
Wrong one. The other remote.
You're tricking me. So of the 3 alternatives presented in the alternatives evaluation report, Lean-Ro's recommended alternative is alternative 3, and for the following reasons. As discussed in the previous slides, alternative 3 would have larger clarification basins, which would allow wash water to be recycled for clarifier flushing, which results in no additional equalization capacity being required, which in turn results in a lower construction cost of all the other alternatives being considered. Because no equalization capacity is required, it has the smallest footprint and keeps all the facilities within the current plant property. If this type of process provides the greatest flexibility to deal with changes in solid production, and it's the least valuable of the alternatives to changes in weather, which is problematic with the existing ponds and also alternative 1. For alternative 3, it's less reliant on equalization, so it allows the existing tank, which is now 20 years old and in need of maintenance, to be removed from service, and it also allows for increased wash water flushing during changes in water quality. Staff will present specific costs on each of the alternatives in their follow-up presentation, and Ron will discuss the wetlands alternative next. I'd be more than happy to take any questions after Ron and staff have presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here we go. Hi, I'm Ron Kreitz. I work for Brown and Caldwell in Davis. A little bit of background. I was raised in Manzanita School District near Gridley. Went to Chico State, got my bachelor's in civil engineering, and then on to Stanford for a master's in environmental engineering. Been working in consulting in the environmental engineering business for the last 45 years. And in the last 30 years or so, I've been doing a lot of work with natural systems, including land treatment and constructed wetlands. And one thing I've found that constructed wetlands are, as Bill pointed out, very easy to operate and maintain. So when you're doing a cost analysis, it's good to have both life cycle costs of operation along with capital costs to be considered. So looking at my presentation tonight, I'm going to tell you about the 4 major kinds of constructed wetlands, and then the one I've selected as the best and most appropriate one I thought for this wash water application. First type of wetlands is what we call the free water surface wetlands. It's been widely used. It's the kind that has, it looks like a big pond. The water runs through the vegetation about 1.5 to 2 feet deep. You grow emergent plants here, and you get treatment as the bacteria that are attached to these plant leaves and roots, stems, feed on the water as it passes through. You need to have some kind of a liner for native soil that's permeable. In the case of this project, a liner was appropriate, I think. Here's an example of one constructed wetland. This is the Whelpin Clay Elm. I mean, this is in Olympia, Washington. And this is getting tertiary effluent and running it through this wetlands. You can see a little bit of water and a lot of duckweed on the surface. And it goes to infiltration basins. The second type of wetlands is called the subsurface flow wetlands. In this case, you don't see the water on the surface. You see gravel or rock. The water moves through the root zone here laterally, and it's treated. And it has to be permeable material, rounded rock, pea stone, that sort of thing is what we use. The advantage of these are that you don't have mosquito control. If you don't want wildlife to come in terms of the water quality impact, you don't get that interaction of the surface water with the wildlife. And one of the examples of this is in Vermont. This is a wetlands here at 10 Stones, where we have 2 cells of constructed wetlands. Water comes through the root zone here from one cell into the other one, and this one infiltrates into the groundwater. Third kind of wetlands is what we call vertical flow wetlands. Instead of going horizontally through the media, the distribution system is on the top, and the water moves down vertically through an underdrain system and then out. In this case, you have a smaller footprint. You can use plants or not use plants on the surface depending on your needs. And you can get better treatment for things like organics and ammonia. And one example of this is up at Salem, Oregon, where they polish some effluent from the treatment plant there to get the ammonia out before they reuse the water. And the last kind, which is the one I recommend for the Paradise Irrigation District project, is what we call a hybrid, which takes into both the advantage of the vertical flow and the horizontal flow. And the outlet is here, but it can be raised. You have a pipe with a swivel on it that raises the water level so you can actually equalize the water in this zone or let it drop down. And the advantages, again, is that you don't have as much distribution system, which is fairly expensive. And you can have this as deep as you want in terms of the gravel. And then you can adjust the outlet to whatever rate you want to discharge. And here's an example one on our winery waste down in San Luis Obispo. The distribution pipe comes out here, a little manifold pipe, and this is the surface of the sand and gravel, and then the water moves down vertically through that for treatment. So, as I was given a little scope of work to work with in terms of looking at sites, the district staff came up with 3 possible sites, and I came up in January and toured all 3 of them and made my analysis of the most appropriate way to do a wetlands for each one of the sites. The first site is what we call the Botanical Garden site. It's moderately far away, not as far away as the second site, but it's about a half a mile away, and it's uphill. The water would have to be treated, and I'm recommending just the settling ponds you have now as pre-treatment for all these alternatives to get the majority of the mud out. Then you'd have to convert, this relatively level site into a basin of some magnitude. About 3.8 acres would be needed at a depth of about 4 feet. And that would provide you the equalization and recycle opportunity to go back to the water treatment plant with the water. The downside of this site is that it's not only is fairly far away, but it's also got the big land use proposed botanical garden, which would be a public access. So you would have to have it controlled so that you wouldn't get things into your water system that would affect your health and safety. The second site is out on Coodlink Road, is Coodlink Park. It's farthest from the plant. Getting there is going to take a long pipeline, and again, it's a relatively wooded site and level, so you have to clear the site. Here we used a wetlands of about 1.6 acres and a depth of about 3 feet. The reason it's a smaller wetlands here is they're not planning on equalization because of the long distance back to the water treatment plant. So in this case, we would need the waste discharge or the water NPDES discharge permit into a stream, and that again would get us back to the 2 constituents that we talked about earlier about removing. And finally, the third site is the recommended site. It's the nearest to the water treatment plant. It's right down the hill a bit from the southern settling ponds. It is a steep terrain all around it. That's the downside of it is it's going to be hard to find a flat area to build a wetland on. So in consequence, it has to be sort of carved out. And what I proposed was making a perimeter concrete wall around it and adding the gravel inside of that so that we have the ability to flow by gravity from the settling ponds through the gravel and then down and out pipe that would take it back to the water treatment plant. So that would do equalization and recycle, and it's on district-owned land, which is another advantage of being able to access the site pretty easily. So that's basically the findings of my report. Are there any questions?
Does Site 3 need a permit? Would we have to maintain the permit on Wetlands Site 3?
You could not. You'd have your choice here. You know, I deal a lot with NPDES permits, and I can see both sides of having them and not having them. A lot of wetlands do have a discharge because they don't really utilize all the water, so there's always some water that has to get discharged. But NPDES permits are inherently difficult. The EPA has always come back with more stringent requirements next time. There may be another constituent that you'll come up with 5 years from now. So you could start out and do the recycle of this water, and if you wanted to, or had an inkling to do that, you could go with a permit. But my recommendation would be go to the recycle on the site.
And the recycle eliminates the permit.
Yes.
In reading your presentation, there were two areas that I read. Perhaps it was for Site 2 and Site 3. If Site 3 was going to discharge back into the reservoir, that a pilot program would have to be run to make sure that it would actually work as engineered. Mm-hmm. So my question is, what would you adjust? Let's say that it didn't meet the NPDES discharge percentages, whatever those things are. Does it just mean we need more rock?
Usually it's more detention time, yes. More rock, more depth, more detention time. You would start at...
More detention time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Giving it longer period of time to
longer
perk.
Period of time, which means it's larger, yeah.
Okay. And can that concrete basin be above ground?
Yes.
Sounds like it could be. It's like building it. You either dig down to put it in the ground, or you build up and just fill it up with rocks.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. Exactly.
That's not easy soil up there, so...
No, it's not. And in fact, that's one of the problems in terms of, dealing with the changes in the cost is that we didn't really communicate how the approach that I was taking to this site. And so if you looked at it like the other sites where you dig down, and as my little diagrams are, little rectangular or trapezoidal section, you would think, well, you'd build up the fill on both sides and excavate down, but it's very difficult to excavate there. Mm-hmm. But it's a small site, so.
In your experience, have you run have you encountered companies that put in an engineered wetland and then, for whatever reason, wanted to remove it?
Yeah.
And did they have any problems with the law about once it's there, you don't touch it? Because right. I have a field here says ask attorney. So
yeah, that's a good question, because right from the beginning you have to make it clear this is a treatment unit. This is not a created wetlands, because if it's a created wetlands, it's there forever. You can't just take it away anymore once the habitat comes in. So you have to clearly make it known to be constructed wetlands. We had one up, in fact, the cover of my book is one at Clay Elum, Washington, which was built in 1999 and operated for about 5 years until they built a regional plant, and now it's been taken out. So you can do that. But you have to show them that it is a constructed wetlands as a engineered treatment system, not as a habitat or created wetlands.
And Dustin, do you have any knowledge about issues or problems where somebody else may have had a problem with an engineered wetland?
No, I'm not aware. I think they're probably few and far between, relatively speaking.
How old's the product? Like 20, 25 years?
I think there's a dozen or so in California right now. But
I'm curious, have you had any experience with the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board? Yeah. Have they seen these wetlands? How do they treat them? Are they in favor of them, skeptical?
Yes, in fact, before I joined Brown and Caldwell, I worked for a company called Nolte and Associates, and down in Gustine, California, we actually piloted constructed wetlands because the regional board had questions about it. So how is this gonna work? Well, how long will it work? And that sort of thing. So we ran a year-and-a-half pilot study to demonstrate to the regional board that it is a workable alternative, and they allowed it to be built. The region that's over at Arcata, which is Region 1, has allowed that system to go in, mostly with Humboldt State engineers and professors pushing that over the years. That's one of the better long-term systems in California. There's a few in the Bay Area that are still operating after 25, 30 years. Near Martinez, a little sanitary district called Mount View, not Mountain View, but Mount View, and Mount Diablo, is about 2 million gallon a day constructed wetlands, and it discharges into the bay. After that, it has to meet the NPDES permit. So it's gone through almost every regional board in the state has had at least one in their document. Bill?
What's the equalization capacity of this?
Well, we made it deep. The reason for the 15 feet is to get to 2 million gallons of equalization, which is, I think, in the long term, it's relatively extreme, but that 1 month or so that you have the need for it, that's what it's there for. Yes.
As I understand it from our water treatment folks, I've been doing quite a bit of research and reading on this. Turbidity is one of our big problems, which is basically mud.
Right.
And that's why the state only allows us to recycle 10% of our daily water, raw water usage. How does this pull turbidity out? Does it happen in the ponds that you're talking about, or as it goes through this 15-foot depth water type?
It actually would be both, since I'm going to pre-treat it with the settling ponds that you have now. That gets the majority of the heavy stuff that's going to fall out of those. It's pretty clear water coming out. And then running it through the gravel gets filtered, and it'll settle out any additional turbidity.
Okay, now yours is mainly sewage.
Yeah, the most systems in California are mostly on sewage treatment plants, yeah.
And you could take that water after it comes through your constructed wetland and put it into a waterway.
Yes.
Like the one up in Arcata, I visited that one because I was doing some work in this area as far as developing it goes.
Yeah.
And they dumped that water back out into the Humboldt Bay someplace out there.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. They've been doing it for how long?
Since the mid-'80s.
Mid-'80s, yeah, I looked at it in the early '90s.
Yeah.
And how many gallons a day? I've forgotten. Thereabouts.
Oh, about 1.5.
1.5, 2
roughly,
million.
yeah.
Now, is that the sewage that comes
through? You know, it's
is that the sewage that not only comes out of Arcata and Humboldt, but also out of Eureka?
No, it's just Arcata.
Arcata and that area.
Eureka has another wetlands, which actually Brown Caldwell built years ago as a mitigation for building the plant in a flood zone. But the Arcata one is the one that's supposed to.
The one that Eureka has is down towards, I forgot, College of Redwoods is down there.
Yeah.
And they put it in a wetland, actually, didn't they?
Right, yes.
Yeah. And I about fell over when I found out they put it in a wetland, because that's kind of unique.
Right.
If this is going to be the same with the ponds and then the wetland, what is the advantage?
Well,
of a wetland.
The advantage of the wetlands, if you wanted to do a discharge, you could give you some further treatment for those constituents, the dichlorobromomethane and the aluminum. But really, with dilution back to the plant, those are not issues for recycle.
Yeah.
So if
that's
you're
what I
doing
figured.
a recycle,
go back.
you could just put a clarifier and an equalization, and you're doing the same thing.
So you don't need the wetland then.
It does the same thing, but it's not anything that's that the other opportunity wouldn't do.
Now, this water that comes out of the wetland, and if we put it in on this Skyway site, it could gravity back into the pipe and go into the water treatment plant.
Right.
We would still have, and I'm looking at the people I got this information from back here, we would still be withheld to our 10% that we could put back in. And the bromomethane really has a very short half-life, and I think we get rid of that without too much trouble. Now, the aluminum, the horse of different color, we participated out in the ponds like that.
Right.
But what percentage of that would the wetlands take out?
Well, there's very few places that have actually been studied to remove aluminum. It's not a common requirement. I've got two in the literature in my book and other books that talk about it. Sacramento Regional, we piloted for metals. We looked at everything, like 13 different metals, but aluminum was not one of them. So if it's in a form that it'll precipitate, they can remove it. If it's dissolved, if it's chelated, it's not going to remove very much. But if you don't have a lot to remove, it can be done.
Our staff, I don't know if they may be talking about it, but for our, yes, sir, I didn't have any idea what it was until I started doing some research and talking about it.
Yeah.
This aluminum we're talking about is a byproduct from aluminum sulfate that we actually add for clarification purposes of the water. Help clarify. Is that not right? And
right.
The dichlorobromomethane, I had to work on that one for a while, is a byproduct from the chlorinating process.
That's right.
And as I understand, every water treatment plant that treats water for public use, bottled water, has those byproducts off.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, the more organics you have, the more byproducts you're going to get. So
exactly.
Like you guys have pretty clean water coming in, so you're pretty low on those numbers. So.
But as I understand it, okay, we can take in the state mandates with this goal that they have and all of this type of stuff, and they'll keep mandating and everything like you mentioned, and they've also mentioned that we can only recycle on a daily basis 10% of our raw water usage. Mm-hmm. And that would be true in any system that we install. Is that not correct? Yeah. Any system we install, I'm looking at the guys back here that know what's going on. Right. That is certainly true. The state holds us to that, right? And the reason that 10% is because of turbidity, mud in the water. You're used to taking feces out, but we're working about just the mud. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, again, back to the only difference that I see between the wetlands alternative and the recommended alternative with mechanical is the operation and maintenance cost and energy involved in it. Other than that, it's going to achieve the same thing.
Can I ask one more question? I vowed not to hold the floor. But that one on Arcata, how long has that lasted before they've had to rebuild it?
They haven't had to rebuild it.
Okay, when I was there at night, they hadn't, and it was about a 10-year-old plant. They had not done anything to it except run this 1.5 million or 2 million gallons of water through it.
Right. Yeah, they actually have two wetlands there. They have one that polishes the oxidation pond water, which has got a lot of algae in it, and it's very dense cattail growth. And what we found at Augustine and at Sac Regional, even when we ran the pilot there, was if you grow big plants, they're going to lodge over after time. You're going to have mosquito issues, and you'll need to cut some back, thin them out a bit. So that's the operation and maintenance problem that you avoid with this kind of system with not having plants. Yeah.
We've already had one experience in building something that didn't last very long. As you probably saw at the treatment plant, we have a nice piece of cement there now, what used to be the old treatment plant.
Right.
I think one of the board's long-term goals that we wanted to look at was that we want this to go for a long period of time, be able to grow if the EPA comes in and says, well, that was great. Now guess what we're going to throw at you this year? Yeah. And maybe we might have a different chemical that we're cleaning out of there. They might say, no, we don't like that either. So, we don't like clean water. So now we have to have it better than clean water. So is this proposed wetlands going to be able to take us there and continue to grow or take on other responsibilities of cleaning and clarifying our water as maybe the EPA throws something else at us?
It has the potential for that, and because it'll clarify as well as do some filtration, which your equalization and clarification, if it settles, that's fine. That's about all that the clarifiers will do. So you can't tell what's going to come down in the future.
Yeah.
Nobody can see that for sure, but it's got more potential to handle things in the future.
No matter what system we look at, its long-term goal is what we're looking at on this, is it going to last? Is it going to go the distance? So,
Yeah.
I read in here somewhere where we were asking to design this based upon doubling the water usage. Is that right?
That was the future, yeah, future demands.
Yeah, future demand. So the size of the units you're recommending now were engineered in the same manner to take that future demand load?
Right. That's why it's larger than in my report. The numbers on the screen are large because of the 2 million gallons future.
The report I have in the iPad is different than what's up here?
Yeah. In terms of the total depth, this is larger.
I think it was 12 foot on the one you have and 15 foot tonight.
so when it changed from the 1 million to the 2 million, is that where we got the extra depth?
Well, we changed in terms of the assumption for percent of the gravel that void space that water could be in. We went more conservative. I agree with Neil's use of 40% is a more appropriate number. So that's why my depth has gotten larger.
Is this,
Excuse me, when you worked on that cost spreadsheet, does that take into account the new depth? Okay. Just wanted to be clear on that.
So the costs I have are going to be a little bit higher?
Yeah.
There was something that you said in your report that confused me. If you want to find it, it's on your report number 5-1, section 5.
Okay.
It's actually in this item 5.2, pretreatment. I didn't understand why you made this statement, and maybe both sides have to do it. I just wanted some help. It said the second sentence in that paragraph says to reduce the flow by 29% to the settling ponds and wetlands. The filter backwash and the filter to waste streams could be separated from the clarifier backwash and recycled separately, as discussed in the Lee and Rowe report. I don't know what you're talking about, reducing the flow by 29%.
Well, if you remember the slide that James put up there, he said what were the sources of the backwash water? 10% for one, 12% for the other, and the clarifier is the 78, 79%. So that was actually recommended in the report at one point to consider those separate, because if you're going to equalize, you might as well get this optimum amount to equalize. If you're equalizing a flow that doesn't have much solids in it, like the filter to waste and the filter backwash, those two streams, 10 and 12% of the flow, but they don't have much of the solids in them. And so if you could keep that from being in your major recycle process, you could reduce the cost overall of the project. That's really what my maybe.
And the annual cost, is it just the depreciation of the structure and the rock?
Right.
Because apparently it's got to be replaced. It has a life like almost everything does. Whether it's 25 or 35 or 50 years, somewhere it's got a life. So is that what we do? We would have to rebuild another site?
Nobody's had to rebuild one yet. When we're talking earlier about pea gravel filters, recirculating gravel filters have been around for 30, 40 years. Nobody's had to reconstruct those either. But if you do get it clogging or something on the surface, you'll probably get it on the surface first, and you can remove that clogging layer manually. That's about as much as we expect to have to do.
Oh.
is there not a certain point where let's just use the aluminum, builds up in the gravel?
Well, you're
mean,
removing such a small amount of it.
I realize that it's
It's in micrograms coming
exactly.
in and smaller micrograms going out. So I don't think you could calculate how long it would take to actually build up.
It's going to be a while, though, right?
Yeah. We looked at Sacramento Regional at some things like zinc, which is probably 10 times as concentrated as the aluminum you guys are talking about. And we couldn't find it in 5 years. It was so dispersed in the sediment. It's really a very small amount. So it doesn't become toxic and didn't have to be removed.
Well, what do we do next?
Well, I'd like to hear from staff about their recommendation and talk about the
I figured.
talk about the comparison of cost.
I just wanted George to move along.
Okay.
I'm up next with some help from my
You're up to
friends
bat.
here. You've seen my recommendations in the memo, and I just want to talk about them a little bit and the process and the different alternatives. What we had to do, because out of respect to do different engineers and their opinions, these are opinions of cost, so keep that in mind. They each have an opinion of cost of what the projects might be. They have different factors that they work on each independently, cost per cubic yard of different things, and that they don't always line up perfectly, but it's an opinion. This isn't a bidding process. One guy can say a widget's worth $10, one guy can say it's worth $100, but at the end of the day, it's what the contractor promises to pay or to charge you to supply that widget is what the end result is. So what we tried to do, I actually need a different slide. What we tried to do is get an apples-to-apples comparison. And there was a little lack of communication, and a lot of that was out of respect to Mr. Kreitz because he was on a pretty limited budget to analyze this, and so we didn't want to burn up a ton of his time. So our goal was to try and provide the board an apples-to-apples comparison of all the alternatives. And we kind of had to do that so that we weren't twisting anybody's arm to believe one person's estimate over the other. So what we tried to do is as our best guess is to try and look at the wetlands options, what was involved in those materials needed to build that, and apply the unit costs that were developed in the Lee and Rowe, because the wetlands are a little more simpler and a little straightforward as far as being able to make those adjustments. Now keep in mind, all of the wetlands options require the reconstruction of the north and south ponds. They have problems with them. Water Quality Control Board's concerned that they leak into the ground, and so they need to be reconstructed, lined, and reworked over. So we took the pond reconstruction costs that Lee and Rowe developed, and they got moved over here to the wetlands alternatives. So everything was all on the same page. And then Neil did some work on trying to evaluate these numbers right here and that's where the real apples to apples comparison is going. And Neil, if you wouldn't mind just summarizing some of the things you looked at.
Yes, principally the costs from Brown and Caldwell the line items are the same. You'll notice that the booster pump station line, the first line there, is from their cost estimate. We haven't altered that at all. The delivery and return pipelines estimates are as they were in the Brown and Caldwell report copy that I have anyway. I understand that maybe some things have changed, but those are the numbers that came in the most recent version that I have. I believe some of those numbers were taken from some of PID's early cost estimates, but anyway, that's where they came from. Ultimately, was Brown and Caldwell's report. Similarly, the wetland site preparation, those numbers are also directly from the Brown and Caldwell report. The only thing that we really looked at in depth was the wetlands construction line item. That's probably where the lion's share of the wetlands concept resides. Some of these other things, pipeline and whatnot, they're pretty much straightforward civil engineering works. But the wetlands itself, we tried to look at, well, are we looking at the same kind of cost per unit quantity of, say, something like an imported select backfill material, a rock material? It would have to be quarried somewhere, screened for size, and delivered by truck. Lee and Rose cost for that kind of material, that kind of select import backfill material, was $60 a cubic yard. My initial take on the wetlands construction line item, why I kind of looked at this at all, was that I looked at the site 3, which was the preferred alternative, and just did a quick calculation of how much volume of rock it would take to fill this vessel that was at that time 12 feet deep and 1 acre in footprint. And at the Lee and Rowe cost of $60 per cubic yard, that would burn that entire 1.1 million, I believe, somewhere in that order, cost for wetlands construction for Site 3. Well, I knew there was going to have to be more to it than just the rock. There'd have to be the construction of this concrete wall, these excavation, other costs were going to be involved. So it suggested that, not that the costs that Brown and Caldwell prepared were wrong, but that they were on a different footing than the costs in the Lee and Rowe analysis. And so that was when I went through and looked at particularly this wetlands construction line item and tried to estimate as best I could based on a relatively brief description of what these 3 sites consisted of, what kind of quantities were involved for the rock, which was fairly straightforward, for excavation to create this place to put the rock, for a liner to put in there to keep this wetlands from leaking into the groundwater, and so forth. And then I prepared the cost items, which you see in the 4th line down, which is wetlands construction. And in each case, I tried to develop quantities that I thought represented what was in the concept prepared by Brown and Caldwell, but I used numbers that came directly from the Lee and Rowe items that are in the appendices to the Lee and Rowe report, where there are fairly detailed cost breakdowns. They had a much larger budget and they provided us with detailed cost breakdowns, so we've got some numbers that we could apply to try to keep those two kind of the same line.
Neil, did you have an opportunity to check and verify those costs independently of what Lee and Rowe said they were going to cost?
I did not even make an attempt to do that, so no, I did not.
Is it similar product that we've purchased before? I mean, we buy rock all the time.
Well, yeah, we did estimate that best we could guess the rock price was less than we were buying it for. Like I said, in
okay,
our
that's what
estimate.
I was
Yeah.
wanting a touchy-feely on it.
Yeah. So when we made this comparison, let me just kind of roll through and then I'll take questions. I can jump back. So when we made this comparison, this is our end results. So you have actually Coodalink coming out the higher, although it's farthest away. And keep in mind that does continue an NPDES permit versus our recommended alternative 3 is what staff is looking at. Now let me just talk through our recommendation, so you know where we're coming from. One of the biggest concerns I've had since day one, I know that the staff has had as well, is what are these unknown events in the future that we may have to deal with? Number one being fire. If we have a fire in our watershed, the level of turbidity we're going to deal with will increase substantially. And so how does that impact all of these alternatives? That's first and foremost in our mind, because that comes into play in how often you have to flush, how often you have to backwash. The more turbidity, the more those things occur, which could kind of skew the estimates that have been made as far as how many times we have to do that in the future, et cetera. So that's a big concern of ours. And then it's creating more dirt, more product. How do we deal with that if we have ponds? If we have ponds and a clarification system, those kind of things. So in the alternative we're recommending, that's not an issue. We can deal with multiple increases in backwashes and flushes because it's built to handle this. Just to kind of go back, instead of taking new water, right now we take new water out of our storage and it goes through the clarifier at 6 million gallons a day rate or higher, and it flushes that clarifier. So we're taking water out of our reservoir, it's flushing it, and then it goes back to the ponds and we have to recycle it. Under alternative 3, you're basically using the same water over and over. So it's clean coming out of the backside of the process. It goes through the clarifier clean. It gets dirty again, and then it goes back through the clarifier, takes the dirt out, and it keeps circulating around and around. There's some options that turn that water over time, so it does get blended back in through the process, but you're using that same water over and over. So you're not as concerned about equalization. You don't have to store this extra water somewhere and blend it back in because of the instead of worrying about the 10% rule, this water doesn't have to be in that calculation because it's not going into our drinking water. It's just being used to flush the clarifiers. So that 10% becomes a much more manageable number to deal with because it only deals with filter, backwash, and filter to waste, not this 78% of water we're dealing with. So it takes out a lot of the big concerns of staff and the question marks of, there was a 1 million gallon EQ tank at one point, and now it's 2. We're more comfortable with 2, but that's our, best estimate of trying to figure out these events and how they impacted us. What if these events change? We're not guessing whether we need to go from 1 million to 2 million because it comes out of the equation. It's not a big a concern. The other thing, second benefit, is it puts all of our operations at the current treatment plant site. And you saw my reference before in the memo, but let me show you visually so you can see it, not change the name. So, whoops. So here you can see treatment plant site is right here. Here is our settling ponds right there. Our other ponds right here. One of the alternatives of wetlands would be constructed right there. You probably saw that in the report. So with alternative 3, all of this becomes out of the picture. Everything gets moved down to this site right here. And what does that mean to us? Well, you know that we're faced with a significant expense in the future for raising Magalia Dam or fixing it or whatever the alternative is. We're probably $80 to $100 million project at least. So that's something we as a district are going to need to really strive to try and find a state or federal help to build that. So how you get state and federal help is trying to maximize the benefits that a project can provide. So by putting a new dam right here, immediately upstream of the existing, whether it's same size or higher or whatever the alternative, there's also a need, and the county has talked to you in the past about it, to expand Skyway to 4 lanes because of the concern of evacuations, traffic trying to get out of Magalia in the event of a fire, etc. So if we build this new dam structure right here upstream, by removing all of our facilities from this side, it allows the realignment of a roadway right here and right on top of that new dam, which if we have facilities in place and try to achieve that, now we're going to have to relocate them, reconstruct them, do something else with them. So I think that's a valid issue that the board needs to consider as we evaluate this project. There is a benefit that's not got any dollar costs associated with it, but by moving all of our operations right here, we're kind of opening that door in the future to be able to couple with the county and try and get not only a new dam, but a safer evacuation route for Magalia Dam. So that was point number 2 that I tried to cover. Treatment plant operators have been involved in this option from the get-go. I really want to take the time to publicly commend Bill Taylor and Neil Esela. Alternative 3 is really one they dreamed up. It's one they thought through, they figured out, they kicked it around, and then presented it to Lee and Rowe for further development. And it's a really good solution. Yes, it has mechanical options. There's things that mechanically operate to make this work. But there are things our treatment plant operators are comfortable with. Clarification processes. These are things that they have dealt with in the past, or they have a high confidence level that they can deal with in the future. So for that reason, they are very, very comfortable with Alternative 3 going forward. Another point that Dustin brought out as we were discussing this agenda item that's not on this list is we have $1.7 million plus or minus of capacity fees. Well, if you select an alternative that doesn't recycle the water, therefore creating capacity by storing more water in Paradise Lake, it's going to be hard to justify, maybe not even possible, that we can use those capacity fees for this project if it just maintains the current NPDES permit. So for those reasons, that's why staff is recommending Alternative 3. I do think the wetlands option is a solid option. It could work. It will work over time. It's tried and true technology, I agree, but some of these outlying issues of plant realignment, concerns about increasing turbidity because of an event that we can't foresee, leads us to maintaining our recommendation for Alternative 3. I'll take questions.
Well, I just want to clarify or ask for clarification on something. Apparently, right now, when we clean our filters, I don't want to call it that, we put that water back into the Magalia Reservoir. And then when it comes back, should we be pumping from Magalia Reservoir? If we're pumping and we want it back into the treatment plant, then we treat that same water and we drink it. We sell it to our clients. And you're saying that with this new circular system, we're just going to be using this treated and settled and clean, quasi-clean water just to wash the filters. Is not going to go into the consumption production?
Yeah, the 79% that's been identified as clarifier flush water, that does not get treated. It just circulates around and around. It will come out eventually, but we don't have to store it off-site and blend it in at 10% because we're not generating all this excess.
It gets clarified, but it doesn't get treated.
Yeah, it gets clarified, but it doesn't need to be treated beyond just clarifying it.
But we don't filter it and then sell it. It doesn't go down the road.
Alternative 3, no.
That's what I was interested in.
Well, he said a small amount might get blended in.
It does over time.
Yeah, it's. Yeah.
So then would it qualify for the 1.6?
Yeah, because we're increasing capacity.
We're not using the clean water for that.
We're not using the raw water to use this process.
We're saving raw water.
It's saving it for the
Okay.
filtering and delivering.
600-700 acre feet?
600 is what I'm
600 acre
estimating,
feet.
yeah.
When I first started hearing, can I ask now?
Yeah, I'm
I had my hand up 2 or 3 times. When I first started hearing about this was on September the 20th, 2012. And on September the 19th, your engineer, Roger, came here and gave a presentation, and they passed this, the board at that time. I was just a member of the audience because I had my hat already in the ring. And for 2.5 mil to solve the problem we're working on today. And then when Roger came back, I had went through and I've been appointed, I won election, all that. And he hit with 7 mil, on this. But anyway, so I really perked my ears up, and one of the things that got my ears perked up George was talking about 600 acre feet we're going to save. That's a lot of water, and it's good. But then I got thinking about it. Okay, well, let's say whatever we do, okay, wetland or whatever it is, or this other site, and we put it in and we recycle it, and let's say on a daily basis we figure out how to gravity into our bypass pipe and put 10% back through the water treatment plant. And the rest of it with this permit that would be very okay, that we have now, goes back into Magalia Reservoir. Other than what we bypass to keep Little Butte Creek going for fish and wildlife, that's still our water, George. So we're still saving 600 acre feet. Is that not correct? Now, granted, the 90% that we bypass back into the reservoir, if we can't use all of our 10%, we have to pump it. Now but anyway, so that's still our 600 feet. It's not like if we were dumping it into Little Butte Creek and letting it go down. Is that not true?
Yeah.
So that would qualify, Kevin and I met and talked about this type of thing. That would qualify under our capacity fee.
It would qualify.
Yeah.
But keep in
See,
mind.
so any way you go, I would think, and in my opinion, we've got to keep that 600 acre feet. And even if it costs us a few bucks, because if we buy 600 acre feet from PG&E or whoever, what will that cost us per acre foot? Approximately, round figures.
Well, the market rate out there would be a couple, $300 an acre.
$300 an acre foot. So you can see what it is on here. The other question that I had, on page 4.4 on Brown and Caldwell, under Site 3, which I would think the only way we would want to consider the wetland part of it, it has 2.417 options for probable cost. Where did that come from?
That was from Brown and Caldwell.
Okay. Where did that come out of?
That's just the cost of building the construction wetlands.
Okay. Of our size?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. And then I realized it also says here does not include the settling ponds, and Niels came up with or whoever did, with a $2.4 million, $17,000 constructed the wetland, the ponds, right? So that would put that at $4.768 million. And I look over here on this one, and I'm just more curious. Wetland 3, Skyway Drive one, is $10.768.
And that's what I was explaining earlier.
I realize that.
That's our goal, to try and get apples to apples.
You sure some of your apples are not green, George? But anyway, because that's a lot of money between the two things there. But
Sure
you and I
is.
have both been
Well-
involved. I'm not doubting your. One of the things I want to make a statement right now. What little bit I know about water treatment plant, I learned from our staff back here in the back. They are second to none. If you want to find the most qualified water treatment people in the state, they're sitting right there in the back. I have no doubt about that. But anyway.
Well, okay, so let's follow up on that. So, Ron, do you agree with, or say those are pretty close numbers to what you think? Does Neil look like he's overstepped the bounds, when he was, when they were figuring up numbers? Usually he's pretty good at numbers, so I don't imagine that he did.
The differences are that the select backfill that he was using for the media, I guess, is different than I would use. I would use pea gravel, which you can buy, contractors can buy $35 to $40 a yard. And that's the type of unit cost I use for the media within the wetlands.
So even he used $60, was I right? $60 a yard? So that's still not too far off the mark if we say it was 45.
Just 100%.
Different material.
Just a little 100%.
Well, that's just one fact. That's just one factor in the.
Talking about all delivered and put in place. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just dump a load and we start grabbing shovels and throw it in there. So, and don't get me, I really like the wetlands idea. It's why I agreed that we spend money to have Ron do, his investigation of whether or not this was going to work up there. So, And I like your Wetlands 3 proposal. That sounds like the most viable,
Well, I
built above
don't.
ground.
I don't.
As I
Because
stated,
Wetlands 3 is in the wrong place. If
Well-
we allow it to go there, then we're jeopardizing ourselves for that dam expansion,
I was going to say barring location.
barring location. So I would say wouldn't even consider, if we're going to go wetlands, we wouldn't consider Site 3, and we're going to have to talk about Site 2 or 1. Because we can't, if we're going to get that dam built,
Don't you remember a vote we had where we turned down site 1 and 2?
where we turn down what?
Sites 1 and 2. The board rejected them. You made the motion.
That was smart at that time.
Well, the board still voted to reject them.
I don't remember.
Did we reject?
I don't
Okay.
recall them rejecting certain sites. They were
I think those were the three alternatives that we put up there.
wetlands, and then they authorized the money to evaluate wetlands.
But anyhow, that's what my opinion is now because of thinking about the road. Actually, I came up with that thought independently of George before I had received the packet. I was asking him where they were going to go, and I said, well, we can't go in this area because we're going to mess ourselves up for future expansion with that road going across there. George thought I did.
I do want to say that the botanical garden site, as it's listed, I talked that through with Parks and Recreation after we met with Ron, and they could work with that. They felt they could incorporate it, not at this given cost, because they would like to use that 3 acres, which means another liner on top possibly, and Ron and I talked about that as potentially being an option. But so they're not opposed to this.
Another liner on top?
To work with us to try and see how it could be a mixed use
At
into
an-
their park
At
center.
an additional cost for the cosmetic makeup over the top of it.
Okay.
And
They
which,
own it at fee?
No, they have a lease from us.
Oh, we own it at fee.
Yes.
which one of the two sites between the Fulton Park and the Botanical Garden site would cost us more in energy per year to pump?
Probably Koodalink, couldn't you? Pumping costs be higher to Koodalink?
Because it's longer distance.
But then Koodalink, we wouldn't recycle, we'd just dump, and we're still with the NPDS permit. Well, I think we have to get away from the NPDS.
That permit worries me that they're going to change again on us.
So now I'm down to one location for the wetlands, which would be the park, the Botanical Garden.
I think actually number 3 is the number one wetlands thing, where you don't fool the botanical gardens nor go off, you have it on your own property. As far as the site of the road going, I don't know where that road's going to go. I assumed it was going to go over the face of the old dam and work that and expand that road right there and parallel to it once the dam's abandoned. But the cost of the dam keeps going up. Every time I hear George talk, it goes up by $20 or $30 million. Now he's got it 80 to 100 million. We started out a few years ago talking about 12 million. I don't think we know. We have never had an engineering firm look at it or give us an estimate or anything. And as far as putting the road on top of the new dam, I don't know, because you don't know where the dam would be placed. You're going to have to move it upstream from the old dam, which has been declared unsafe and everything, and you might have to move it 60 feet upstream. So then the making of a road on top of it would be very expensive, especially a 4-lane road. I'd like to get us to move on to, I think the key thing to making a difference between these, we can argue with the figures that are on the report, is that the actual operation cost, energy cost, life of the mechanical parts of the number 3 proposal, up there, the alternate 3 clarification size for AC flush rate, energy costs of doing it, and overall cost of doing it. There's no shrinkage in that. It's still $9 million, and even though you put the wetlands in at 10, site number 3, I think that's too high, but that's just my own opinion. We don't have, and it says that in Lee and Rose write-up and everything, we don't have operation costs. We don't have mechanical costs. We don't have energy consumption costs. We don't have the proposed life of the machinery. And then talking to a friend of mine who worked with sewage districts in the South Bay, he says they're all converting over from centrifuges to the belt as a mechanism for squeezing water out because of maintenance problems with the centrifuges. Meaning when they do go offline, they may take 2 months to fix or 3, and most of them, he said, had 2 or 3 centrifuges, and now they're abandoning them and going to the belt system to take the water out of the mud or whatever you want to call it. In fact, he thought it was funny that the recommendation was for centrifuges to do this work. But those things are the breakers of this thing. Operation cost on number 3, alternate for the clarification and everything, is we don't know. We don't know the energy consumption. We don't know the mechanical life. We don't know the overall cost from that. Now we know even if the tie is on the wetlands, we do know the energy costs are low, operation costs are low. There's no life of mechanical things to fail or have to be replaced or depreciated.
Don't we have a pump that we have to pump the water up?
One pump. They're using his design uses the
mechanical?
existing pumping system, but I think there's one return pump that has to be put in, one line.
I just want to make sure that's going to be mechanical, right?
Yeah, that's going to be mechanical or
Okay.
electrical, I don't know, or hydraulic. He could be one of the 3. But that's only one thing you're going to have increased energy costs. It's going to, compared to the other system, it's not very much. So I think we really need to look at these costs and really should go to two proposals, one from the wetlands on number 3 and the alternate clarification number 3, and get the cost of operations, energy costs, life of mechanical or not, so we have the actual depreciation costs, and they can add up to a lot of money, and there's nothing in the report for this. In other words, we've got a nice engineering job that costs, whatever way you want to cut it, 900 million plus, or 9 million plus, I'm sorry. And we have to finance it. We haven't gotten our finances in line, what we're going to do about this to finance it, and what is the operation cost for this. So I think we need to get more from Lee and Rowe on their costs and more from the wetlands on the operation costs. Not just the construction costs. That's all we're considering tonight is construction costs. And I do disagree on some of the long-term ideas that the road will do this and the dam will cost that. And we have no way of knowing. And it's up to the county really to decide where the road's going to go.
It's up to the county, but it's up to us to make our best judgment about what we want to prepare for in the future. And I didn't think that we had selected the method by which we were going to mechanically squeeze out the turds, the heavy stuff.
No, it hasn't.
If you take Lee and Rowe's recommendation, it's a centrifuge.
I thought it was either centrifuge or belt.
I thought I read belt too. But
No, if you look at the recommendations, it's written in there.
Is that
saying
right?
Centrifuge.
Yes, please.
In this latest version of the alternative evaluation report, we actually backed away from making a centrifuge because some of the comments that Director Kellogg had mentioned are important about looking at life cycle analysis. It's important to look at hauling costs. It's important to look at polymer costs. It's important to look at electrical. I would agree that centrifuges are very expensive to maintain, but you need to look at the benefit of hauling away much lighter material, and all those things need to be looked at. One of the reasons those weren't looked at this phase is with 7 alternatives, it becomes a monumental challenge to assess all those O&M costs across the board. But as far as this version of the report, we chose the most expensive capital cost, and it's not expensive by much, as the centrifuge, but said that we would take a further look at it once the water method is chosen, whether it be mechanical or settling ponds.
To write in on what Seth was talking about, and when I first started looking at this on September the 20th, 2012, because I knew we'd be sitting here this evening, some evening, and this happened to be the evening we were doing it, talking about this. I'm a history buff. Some of you have heard my speeches that I give about Paradise history. And in 82, 83, and I handed this out to the board when I first got on because I was kind of making my stand what I was standing for. Yes, it's to the point.
Oh, is it?
Okay, very close to the point. And they put together a water treatment plant, and you can ask the experts back in here, and it was a boondoggle. It did not work. And they went the least cost way of doing it because of the ratepayers. Well, I made a statement that what I'm going to vote for is the one that gives us the most for our dollar and longevity, like Sepp was talking about. Then, in 1993, 10 years later, we did a treatment plant enlargement for a tune of $5,250,000, which we're just going to be paying off next year. It was a 22-year loan. And I was told by very reliable sources, none of us are here in 93. I was here in town, but I wasn't worried about this kind of thing. We could have solved a lot of this problem in that 93 project. So here we are in 2014. This is where it fits right in, Mr. President. We have the same opportunity to help resolve it, you see. And that's what we've got to do. Whether it be a wetland or option 3, I'm not ready to vote on it tonight. I could not vote one way or the other. And if somebody wanted to move either the wetland or the other one, I'd have to vote no, because I need to look at it thoroughly on the thing. So what I had down here, well, then I'll move one more thing. When we were talking about belts and centrifuges on page 46 of Lee and Rowe's report, it talks about it. It's on 8.4, comparison of dewatering options, and it talks about the belt press and the centrifuge. And basically, that type of thing we're putting in is just a sewer plant operation, except we're taking mud out, whereas they're taking sewer out in this other thing here. And it goes on and talks about it. I won't talk through this type of thing, and it takes more opportunity, more comparison for operator time, and I appreciate our staff doing this, to do the belt, and they have it overtime in 40 hours. But then down here, over a 15-year life cycle. Is that what one of these centrifuges or belt system, the life cycle before they're wore out? I've been involved in machinery for 60 plus years, okay, and it wears out. Anything wears out. Does that have a 15-year life cycle? That we need to find out. And if it does, the belt press is 2.5 mil, a few bucks left over, and the centrifuge is 2.9 mil with a few bucks left over. For all practical purposes, $3 million. And if it has a 15-year life, before the note is paid off, we're going to be replacing a $2, $3, $4 million process for doing it, you see. So we got to look at all that. So what I would like to do, Jesus, it's early for a PID meeting. I think we should continue to look at the alternate number 3. We can eliminate all of the other ones as far as the alternate goes, 1, 2, and there's no 4. But alternate number 3 and wetland site number 3. And what we need to do, and some of this is what Bill was just talking about, although we didn't get our heads together on this, and we need the cost of the construction, because someplace along the line on the wetland, we are about $4 million higher, whether it be the beautiful rocks we're putting in it or who knows what it is. On here, we're about $4 million over on that. We need to look at the cost of operation, which we don't do in here. We look at maintenance and the life of all of this type of stuff and how we're going to finance it. And we do have some stuff here on the financing part of it, and it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. But anyway, so before I can cast a ballot in your people's name, I have to look at more of this. But at least we would have it narrowed down to one alternate in the smash and press and throw out the door type of a thing, and one in the wetlands. And then we can come with all this.
Isn't that what we wanted to do with the motion?
No, you were gonna go, if we followed the staff's recommendation, which, don't misunderstand me, I can see where you're coming from, we just need more time to look at it, because I have the utmost confidence in these people back here, you see? But we would say we would be looking at alternate number 3, and I don't think we're ready to look at that. We need more time, and we need to weigh the wetlands, and we need all these things that I just put out here on the front of my thing. Cost of operation, the cost of construction, what type of maintenance we're looking at, and the life of the whole operation on this type of thing, and how we're going to finance it. You know,
You know, the how we're going to finance it doesn't make any difference.
that's right.
It doesn't, because we're going to finance the wetlands or we're going to finance the mechanical one.
It's going to be $10 million or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make a business.
So it doesn't make a difference.
I understand that, but we still need to look at it.
He is looking at it. That's all.
He gave us a nice.
That's why you have your chart.
It's right here.
Okay.
But I think we have to give some, right now we have 7 alternatives. We got to get down to 1.
No, let's get down to 2, because we got a wetland thing that has a lot of options, and we have the other one.
Wetlands position number 3, site 3, I'd never go with.
Well, let's look at the wetlands. And
Site
use
number 2
number 2.
has to be discharged into the lake. That's an NPDES permit still required. I would never vote for it.
I don't think you'd go for any of the wetlands, Ken.
I think you're right, Bill.
Yeah, so I don't think
I
it
don't-
matters. You got a no vote against.
In that case, I
don't
move
really-
to select alternative number 3 and authorize staff to proceed with environmental review and with proposals for the development of a preliminary design report and final design engineering for consideration at a future board meeting.
Now,
Is there a second?
I can't second that. Sorry.
guys, for the lack of a second, Mr. President.
I'll second it.
Oh, doesn't die for the lack of a second.
Okay, I want to, does anyone from the public like to speak to this before we make our vote? Please come forward. We've got to do something. We can't just keep putting it off. We're running out of time.
This is the first time we put it off.
That's true. Since September 2012, I've been paying attention to this also. And I told you I'd be back because,
You state your name and,
I'm sorry, I'm Robin Huffman, and I live here in the PID district. And, okay, so the most important thing first is I really appreciate what Director Kellogg has brought forward with the wetlands and what both Kellogg and Doug Flesher are saying here, that we should go forward with 2 alternatives, 1 wetlands, and then pick maybe alternative 3 since staff supports alternative 3 for the engineered mechanical system so that you can narrow it down a little bit. But what I said I'd be back for is a consideration of something that doesn't produce aluminum and dichlorobrom, whatever methyl byproducts. And that is the ozonation process. Because when you rejected that before, you were not considering that the total cost would be somewhere between $9 and $13 million. So it'd be better if we didn't produce these terrible chemicals in the first place and then have to clean them up. So I would suggest taking another look at the ozonation process, since you're going to be spending in the neighborhood of $10 million anyway. So please don't eliminate the waste, the wetlands. The natural processing is so much simpler. Keep it simple, right? The KISS principle. And I think that bears further merit. This is the first time that it's come back to the public since at least a year. I know that AER's alternative evaluation reports have been circulating around staff, but when I asked for what's going on, there were no reports whatsoever to give me until today. And so I think we need at least a little more time for public consideration of the wetlands. Thank you.
yeah.
Martin Harvey, Paradise resident, 1947. I think you guys would be derelict to your duty as public elected people if you didn't consider the cost and operation of anything that you were going to put in. I just think it's just imagine if somebody sold you an air conditioner for your house and you had no idea what this thing was going to cost to run, but yet you were going to buy it with borrowed money, but you didn't have no idea what the cost of the thing was going to be to run it at all. You don't know if you can manage it or not. And the district's only got a $500,000 freeboard right now, as I understand it, so you can't absorb too much cost without going to the public and asking for more money. So I really think you ought to look at both of them, and I don't think that either one of these reports are near complete enough to make a logical and informed decision on it at all. It's just so vague, it's laughable. And one last thing. It is true, nobody knows where that dam's going to go. But let me explain one thing to everybody who's here tonight. I keep hearing this thing grow by $20 million every meeting. It was only, it was just 2 meetings ago, it was $40 million. I got the movie, I can play it for you. But the thing about it is nobody knows where that's going to go, and if you can't come up with $10 million for a treatment plant or a wetlands, you're going to skip to Malou to come up with anything for a raised Magalia. That's going to be so far in the future that we probably are going to have to replace the rocks before that ever comes. And at that time, we can decide where to go with it. It's at least 30 years in the future. Everybody knows it. Thank you.
My name's Loretta Griffin. And at last I understand an engineer's report. I've come to some of these meetings, I didn't know what they were talking about, but years ago I built a fish pond. And in the book I read, it said I could build another pond below it and use that gravel in that second pond to filter and reprocess the water for my fish pond. That's exactly what you're doing, isn't it? Hallelujah. But every time I come to a meeting, the prices jump some more. Will you please hurry? We can't afford much more. This has gone up, up, up. We started at like $3 million. Now, for God's sakes, I don't know what we're at. But hurry up and get this finished, please.
Well, we're not spending any money tonight.
I know you're not.
We're picking an alternative. And if it costs, if it's way outlandish, we're not putting it in concrete what we're going to do tonight. We're just trying to direct in a certain way. That's the way I look at it.
What do you have to do to satisfy the state?
Mr.
It's not a discussion.
Mr. President, when we pick an option or an alternative, that's the one we're going to run with, most likely. That's what we're going to go with. That's just the way that it is.
Not necessarily.
George is saying yes on this. That's what he's saying.
But if we find out it costs 10 times more than the other,
wait a minute. What we're trying to do is figure that out by looking at an option of the wetland that we have and an option of the alternate number 3. And right now I couldn't vote for either one of them until I do some of this stuff that I put down here, because we're kind of guessing. And the staff and Lee and Rowe and Brown and Caldwell have done an awesome job putting this together for the amount of material, but we've got to take it one step further. We really do.
Anyone else in the public like to speak?
My name is Stephen Gukin. I'm a Paradisian. I think that Mr. Kellogg has some really good points in regards to we'd like to see operational costs, lifetime of the, how long things will last, a lifetime of the given projects. I believe Mr. Fletcher and Mr. Kellogg had some good points. I like the wetlands idea, but we really need to see more numbers.
I agree that we need more numbers, but I think this is the way to do it. Myself, I would like to get down to one alternative tonight, but if we can't get 3 people to agree to it, it sounds like we can't, well, then maybe we'll have to go to 2.
Well, a year ago, we were on one alternative, and then 6 months ago, the idea for the wetlands came up, and it's delayed it all this time. We're not talking about just delaying this another 30 days. This may be another 6 or 8 or 9 months before we ever get around to doing something, and then we're going to be in the year 2015 when our permit expires. I don't even know if we started now, if we'd get this thing constructed before the expiration of that permit. When does it expire in 2015?
It expires in May of 2015.
May?
We would not get it built in time. We're not going to get a letter from the state that tells us you get an extension. But there's processes in place and how they operate. They may find us in violation, but even though they find us in violation, if we are proceeding towards a solution and spending money to the solution, that can satisfy their concerns. But there's no guarantees.
So Ron talked about, or someone talked about, constructing kind of like a junior version of the wetlands, so we can see if it's going to work. Is that what
Pilot?
I was understanding? A pilot, yeah.
I don't know what that meant.
Yeah,
We can
so
clarify
I wanted
that.
you to elaborate on
What I
that.
got out of his report is we would need the pilot if you're going to maintain an MPDS permit, but if you're not, if you're going to recycle the water, probably don't need a pilot project. Is that correct?
Okay, so we don't have to do a test run on that.
As long as we're not maintaining an MPDS permit.
Well,
That's
if we went
one of the
to
most important things is to get away from that permit. I think, I don't know, Dustin, would you agree on that, that's not a,
Yeah, there's an expense, there's the unknown factor. Right now, it's aluminum and dichloro, whatever. What's it going to be the next 5 years, or 10 years, 15 years? We don't know. So it would be nice to get away from the permit. And remember, there's another option we've discussed. I raise it just to throw it out there, not to advocate for it, but Los Angeles, San Diego, they have litigated their very stringent new NPDES requirements under the test claim theory, that these are state mandates. This is not derivative of the Federal Clean Water Act. These are state mandates. We're a local agency. State, if you want us to comply with these standards, you got to pay us money to do so. That is an option. Litigation, I'll give you the standard disclaimer. Litigation is expensive and it's uncertain. So you could spend a lot of money litigating on that, and then at the end of the process lose, and you're back to where you are currently. But, this is a little bit unreasonable, and the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board has been known to be unreasonable. They're asking for an unattainable standard. It's absolutely unattainable. So it's amazing. We're talking about investing, you name the alternative, millions of dollars for something that I would love to hear a fishery expert describe to me why the concentrations need to be where they are. Because I don't think the science is there. I think they're certainly trying to do the best they can to protect biological resources, but they may be exceeding the bounds there in a way that is extremely expensive to the ratepayers. I would like to hear from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board. I'd love to see them come to a meeting and explain why these standards have to be met. And maybe they could speak to what they foresee as potential problems, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I don't know. Maybe they'll come, maybe they won't.
I wanted to correct Ken's comment saying that the wetlands were the reason this was delayed. The wetlands report was available before Lee and Rowe's report on this last series.
Bill, it's all of these little things have delayed it. Why argue the point?
Well, argue the
It's
point
being
because
delayed.
you want to go to-
September 2012 is almost 2 years ago.
Yes.
So something's delayed it, and every time we have another meeting, we delay it. Now I don't know why she says we haven't done anything to public, because the wetland thing was a public thing, going to the wetland. I don't understand it either.
There's things I don't understand. We voted for the Same thing that's carried on every one of these things, and that's reconstruct North and South Pond areas. We actually voted the money for that and to go ahead on it at one time, and we haven't done anything.
I don't think we've voted any money, Bill.
Bill,
The only
I don't know
money
where
we've
you're
done-
pulling these things out of. Thin air?
We haven't voted any money except for the engineering study.
Doug read you the vote you
September
took on the
19th,
money.
We voted 2.5 mil. And I asked you after the meeting.
For what, Doug?
Yes, we
For
did.
what?
What?
For what? Read it.
For what he said would solve the problem.
That was for
Option
the,
number one.
What's
Voted
the
estimated
motion?
2.89 million on this type of a thing, and it carried with a
What was the
vote.
motion? You're just giving a number. I want to know what the motion says.
As there is no further, okay, the motion, let me find it here at the bottom, I got so many notes on the thing. Project Manager Roger, back look on here.
Well, you got to speak clear enough for me to understand it,
Yeah, I
too.
understand that. I'm just trying to read the motion perfectly. But anyway, you voted for it.
No,
Yes, you.
I want to hear a motion first to know whether I voted for it or not. Because I can't remember.
I don't think we have all voted for 2.5
I don't
million.
think,
Sure did.
maybe a study.
A study to look into it, but we've never voted to spend 2.5 million.
That's what I have down here.
Well,
The figures in the thing.
read the typing, not your notes.
I think we all keep reverting back to this original. Yeah, it's going to be a $3 million project, and then
And maybe that's what we
at
thought
that
originally.
point. At that point, that was Lee and Rowe. When Roger came up here, he said, "Gosh, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 million. I have no idea what it's going to take. It's going to take a study in order to do it, and that's why we paid him the money in order to produce these reports. Obviously, those numbers are higher than that. I seems like some people are under the assumption we just want to blow $10 million out our you-know-what, and we don't care how we do it. A $2 million project would have been great. $3 million project would have been great.
Okay, option
There's
number
no
one.
changing that we're at $10 million.
Read a motion.
No, wait just a minute. Option number one, estimated construction cost of 2.89 mil. And then over here, as there was no further questions or comments, it was moved by Director Duncan, seconded by Director Kellogg, to direct Lee and Rowe to proceed with option one.
Well,
And
yeah.
you pointed in 2.9.
That was studying it.
That was-
No, it was 2.9 mil.
That was not a project, that was a study.
It wasn't to spend the money.
No, it was
It was to look at option one.
As far as Roger was concerned,
If we vote on this motion we have right now, are we spending $10 million
because
tonight?
it states in there, we're not. But we're looking at it, but George shook his head. If we vote yes on the motion that's on the floor, we're authorizing to go ahead and do an environmental study and do a preliminary design. That's what we're doing, is it, George?
You're picking a project to move forward with CEQA and
That's
doing
exactly
design.
right.
But
And
you're
then we're not going to stop in the middle of the stream and say, no, that was not a good decision. We're going to go right ahead with it.
Are we authorizing $10 million tonight?
No.
You're not authorizing it, but you're authorizing to look at the project
Well, I think,
and do it.
but
I'll
don't
bet
we
you-
have to do this with any project?
I really, if we vote this in, we are saying that we're going to do it. That's the only, it is, really.
Then how
That's
come we
just,
didn't do the
that's
2.5?
just a study.
This is just a study. That's not spending 2.9 million.
And
There's
we're
a lot of difference.
asking them to give us engineering on option one.
Yeah. That's all we were
Went up
doing.
to 2.8 mil.
That's what they thought it would cost.
Well, can we do it for 2.9?
I wasn't involved at that.
Yeah, but I mean, can we do it for in your professional opinion? Can we do it for 2.9? Okay, so we can might as well drop 2.9, 3 million, 4, 5. We're no longer at those numbers. It really doesn't do us any good to keep throwing them back out to the public, because the public has the impression, as I just heard in town over the weekend, that there's a $3 million project that we can do, but we're choosing to do a $10 million project. And I was the cause of that. Okay, why that was happening, I have no idea how that information got out there, but that there was a $3 million project, and why weren't we choosing that? I said, we haven't even seen the numbers yet. How do you have the numbers? So there's no more $3 million project. There's no more $4 million project.
George, if we add
It's a $10 million
if we add
project.
the
what it is.
3 wetland to the 3 in the motion, will that will we be able to proceed with the CEQA?
No,
No.
you need a project.
Okay, we can't, so we can't.
Basically, the only way to proceed with CEQA then is jumping straight to a full-blown EIR, which I don't think for these types of projects is even warranted, and the cost of that CEQA will be way higher.
We won't,
I
are we
mean,
gonna do
the best
negative?
thing, if the board's majority wants to look at Site 3 and Alternative 3, then the motion needs to be to direct staff to get a proposal for further engineering to evaluate those two projects and bring them back to the board with further cost analysis, including future life cycle costs.
So what kind of life cycle would be the board's pleasure if we did that? 10-year, 20-year? I mean, we can't look 30 years into it. They're not going to be able to project 30 years.
That's the engineer's job. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say a 10-year, if anything, it would be way farther than I think it's going to be.
Engineering.
Yeah, that's going to be about as far out as you can drag it.
Well, I don't think it's our place to tell them what to do on that. I mean, I think
Well,
that's what they're.
apparently we're not going to get a vote on anything
Unless we do.
unless we have a 10-year study on the wetlands. And I'm not against the wetlands, but we need to know what these costs are going to be, apparently, if we're going to get a vote.
The problem I have with the wetlands is the three locations don't fill the bill for what we want to do. And so that means we don't have a location for it. And it's not I thought at first, a wetland is going to be an environmental plus.
Swamp.
It's going to be a plus, though. It'll make everything better. But the kind of wetland we're looking at, you're not even going to know it's there.
Well, you saw the pictures out
It's
there.
going to be a
You
concrete
won't
structure with gravel in it.
With gravel over it, and you won't even know it's
When
there.
we were talking up at the botanical garden and it was like a pond,
No, it won't
that
be
was a plus,
Yeah.
for the botanical garden. It's not a pond
It's
anymore,
not a pond anymore. Yeah.
by his own recommendation. It's not a pond.
And
where-
that's the way I understand it. The ponds are more for sewage, not for drinking water. That's the way I look at it. But so I think the idea of a wetland is a great idea, but I don't think it fits the
Why
situation.
don't we call for a motion on
Well,
that?
I think like
Or call for a vote on the first
Okay,
motion.
roll call vote, please.
Can you read the motion? Can we, are we,
what was in the book.
Was to select alternative number 3 and authorize staff to proceed with environmental review and with proposals for the development of a preliminary design report and final design engineering for consideration at a future board meeting.
thank you.
And Director Corolla,
No.
Vice President Hunt,
Yes.
Director Fleischer,
Oh.
Director Kellogg,
No.
President Duncan.
Yes. Fails 3-2. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue to study alternate number 3, the clarification in size AC flush rate, and wetland project number 3 for looking at cost of construction, cost of operation, maintenance, and other pertinent things. And along with that study, I think we should follow our council's advice and bring in the Central Valley water people, and they'll come up and attend a meeting, and we can really ask them what's happening. Is that not right, Dustin?
Yeah, I'd love to put them on the
That
spot.
would, that would
Yeah,
be,
yeah, if he
that would
shows.
be part of this study.
May I, you're waiting for a second, go ahead.
I'll second.
You're going to need a change order or something, I would imagine. You may want to consider a not-to-exceed figure with Brown and Caldwell. I don't think they're going to do this within their original scope.
No, I think it's directing staff to get a proposal for that
Is that
evaluation.
your understanding?
Well, I was going to ask what it is because I didn't understand the motion.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I didn't know if you were authorizing us to spend money, get into an engineering contract, or just wander around and
Just,
try to get some estimates.
Like it says out here, an estimate of the cost of construction. you know, and maybe we'd have exactly the same one that Neil's come up with for the wetland at another $10 million.
And who's to produce that?
Are you directing staff, or are you
staff.
directing
Yeah,
Lee and
We
Rowe?
would have to have staff do that.
We had staff, they just did it.
This
what
is-
all
this
that
is
stuff
staff.
But we really haven't had the look that we're going to look at operation and all that. The only
That's
thing
what
in
we
the
have.
operation
That's
here
right. We don't have
is
that.
on page 46, and they did a good job explaining this with the 500,000 over a 15, the life cycle, you see. So if that has a 15-year life cycle, and any of us that work with equipment knows that it's going to wear out. In fact, I'm helping some people buy some pretty expensive stuff right now. And in 15 years, if it wears out by that particular time, and it most likely be cheaper to buy new, we'd be looking at about $3 million to replace that, whether we go a belt or a centrifuge.
Well, it might be $10 million to replace it in 3 years. It might be $10 million to replace it in 3 years.
Very well be, yes.
Okay, read the motion, please.
As I understand it, the motion was to direct staff to proceed to review alternative number 3 and construct a wetlands site number 3 for looking at cost of construction, operation, and maintenance, and then suggest to bring in the Regional Water Quality Control Board.
Okay, now this won't
to discuss
forward
the
it.
future meeting.
This is delaying the
Good work.
project, right?
That was good.
Of course it's going
it's gonna
to. Of course it's going to delay it.
Well, I mean, we're talking, you know, everyone says it hasn't been delayed. It's been delayed for 2 years.
May I make a clarification? I
Please.
mean, the motion is the motion, but I don't think it's appropriate for the board to ask staff to develop life cycle costs
You're-
and
you're
make.
the-
Wait, can I finish?
Yeah, but-
I do not think it's appropriate for this board to ask staff to develop a future operation and life cycle cost analysis for these two projects.
Okay.
It is a professional engineer's purview to do that type of report, and you're asking them to develop costs on things they don't operate, touch, or maintain at this point. It can't be done. So I just want to be clear with the board that if you're going to ask staff to do it, we can't do it. So if you want this project done, all we can do is get a proposal from Lee and Rowe. You can even ask them to subcontract with Brown and Caldwell to develop the wetlands option and develop a report together. And hopefully we can have enough money to do apples to apples. So everything's on the same page. But I just want to be clear, we can't do that.
George, I think you've got an excellent point there. And I wasn't meeting back here, other than I have complete faith in our staff, including you. We would be asking you to follow through with that. And Lee and Rowe, and maybe you've already spent it and has gone through here, you still have $10,340 left on your contract. That's what we're acting on today. So I wonder, is there...
Probably not.
Is there 10,340 minus tonight?
Probably it's minus this month.
Minus this month. Have you any idea what it is? I wouldn't expect...
To date, we're in the hole.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's no money left on the current
To
contract.
date, you're in the hole?
Yes.
Yes.
This is the version of the report, so going to another more detailed version we would incur additional costs.
Right.
So it's more
Well,
money.
then-
So you gotta do a proposal, request for proposal, because they're out of money.
Well, George, are we going to get requests for proposals for free?
No.
Nope.
How much are they going to cost?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think he'll charge us to give you a proposal. But the report will cost.
I was going to say,
The report will cost.
from our ratepayers through us, they've already received $229,577, and I would think that they would give us an RFP pretty cheap.
That's awfully nice of you, Doug.
Yeah,
Well, can we put them on the spot? I mean, can you guys just give a ballpark estimate right now? What life cycle costs, those types of things?
I think I would want to sit down and talk with staff about specific things we look at, so our scope is well defined before we get into it.
I agree.
yeah. What's it gonna? What do you think it's gonna cost? What's an?
To the staff.
I don't know if he can
just
just
ask.
shoot off. No, what is it gonna cost for you to produce this report?
We can still.
that we're asking for.
That's what he's saying.
You know, I'm,
Well, yes, not what the cost is. How much is it, what do we need to pony up?
That's what he's talking about. Cost of this thing.
Kellogg, we've heard general parameters of what the report would be. I think we want to sit down with staff and define what the specifics, what O&M costs are going to be included, what's the life cycle costs, the detail level of the report, so we're on the same page. I don't want to throw out a low number and then submit a report and have staff tell us it's not detailed enough, or vice versa, give you a very detailed number and have the board accept that the cost is too high.
there's a timing issue here that you're pushing this out a month just to get a proposal, it sounds like. Then you're going to act on the proposal. Then it's going to take however long it takes these gentlemen to develop the detailed information. And it's going to come back to the board. So, you know, I want to remind you that we are up against somewhat of a urgent time deadline here.
Did I come to that? I talked to Jim, and he's already putting in a letter for an extension on the present circumstances. Because even if we don't do this, we're still 3 months, 4 months, and we're talking about whatever we agree to, we have to figure the financing. And then that takes, I think we told, last month we were told 90 days or more to put out the forms to get a vote from the people in the community to support it financially, something like that, isn't it? So I don't, to me, the information is so valuable to figuring out which way we go that it's worth the delay. And I got the 160 some pages from the water quality people with all the history of our dealings with them at home, and I've read the thing twice. In fact, it repeats itself in places 3 times. It's in through that thing, they keep saying you can put in for extensions if, like George is talking, if you're moving forward on some plan and issue, you're not sitting idle. So I don't think they're going to fall on us and give us a bunch of fines as long as we inform them of what we're doing and what we're going ahead with and buying time with extensions.
The reason I brought up the timing aspect is because, or to have the board consider funding it right now, a not to exceed figure. And if the proposal comes in and staff thinks it's unreasonable or excessively high, then he could come back.
Well, see, I don't want us to approve any kind of money for proposals other than doing the work we're talking about.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Rather
than delay it another month just to see the proposal, allow you to come back, and if it's reasonable, staff could approve the proposal. That way they start working on it immediately. Might save you a month.
It doesn't. What happens if the other proposal has less cost, operational costs, energy costs, lifetime of mechanical?
He's not talking about giving staff authority to pick an option. He's just saying, you guys want a life cycle operational analysis included with the capital costs. It's going to cost money for these guys to produce that report. So if you want to make a motion to authorize additional expenses for that endeavor up to
then we can just go
X
ahead.
amount of dollars, then we could
There'd be
proceed.
no 30-day delay to it at all.
Yes, but if we do $30,000, if we do, that's ballpark, and maybe you're not ready to answer it, and I respect that if you're not giving us a ballpark.
What kind of a ballpark figure would our wetlands be?
Well, that's...
You don't know either. You're not ready to say?
Well, I think, probably about half of what I did the other report for, so about 5,000.
We're talking 5,000 there. What about Lee and Rowe? Maybe you're not in a position with your firm to make that kind of a statement. I understand that if you're not.
No, I mean, the difficulty I'm in is being in the hole. I can't make a promise that my firm's not going to be able to keep if
I understand.
they're not happy with that number. I mean, unfortunately, we can't give a bargain basement price and afford to give more away and be deeper in the hole.
Right.
Well, I think your motion, we better vote on it and get it out of the way because it's completely wrong.
Well, it's completely right, Mr. Chair.
No, 'cause you
But wait a
folks-
minute, don't forget that. The whole intent of the motion is to look at alternate 3 and wetland 3. That was the intent of the motion. It got a little wordy, I'll agree with you on that. But I got into staff and what I wanted to look at, so that got a little
Right,
wordy.
but when you got wordy, you went wrong.
I understand.
I think that's the problem is, who are we directing
Yeah.
to do that? That's the
Well, here's what
problem.
let's do.
Georgiana's understanding of it is you're directing staff.
Why don't we vote on the motion and get rid of it? And then we can start over. That's the cleanest way.
Yes.
Okay, roll call, please.
Director Corolla?
No.
Director Hunt?
Yes.
No.
Oh, man.
Director Fletcher?
Oh,
Director Kellogg?
I've got a thing I get on TV, and it's called Dr. Martin. He's a real contrary, cussed sort of guy, and I thought, takes right after Ken. Any rate, I vote no.
Okay, now,
President Duncan?
no.
okay, now I'll make it, I'll try to make it.
It fails 4-1.
The interesting part of it is I teach parliament procedure and have been doing it for over 50 years. And I wouldn't want my students to watch me tonight, so don't put this on the tube, Lauren. I move that we continue to look at alternate number 3, clarification of size and AC flush rate, and wetland number 3, Skyway Drive.
Good.
not enough.
There is no such thing as Skyway Drive.
We're going to continue to look at it, then we're going to find out how we're going to do it. Instead of putting it in the motion, then we'll figure out how we're going to do it. Okay? Simple motion. We're just going to continue looking at it, and then if we decide to do that,
So we're not getting
We're
anything
going
done
to
tonight.
discuss this more, but not spend any money to get.
we're going to do that in a minute. If it's somebody's second.
I'm sorry, so your motion?
You might as well just include it in the motion. The spend the money part is just
We can
part
do
of the
that.
motion.
We would have $5,000 to Baker and, I'd have to look at your book, Baker and who?
Brown and Caldwell.
Brown and Caldwell, yeah. We'd have $5,000, not to exceed $5,000 for them, and $10,000 for Lee and Rowe. Just pulling it out of the air. Now, if Lee and Rowe won't do it, then we'll have to come back. What's your thought?
Ron, if I were you, I'd up your price to $10,000.
Can I say something? I mean, I just ask that if you're going to have somebody do it, please have one party do it and not two parties do it. I'm not saying anything against either of these gentlemen here, but at least we'll have one report that comes from one place and it's not us looking at it and saying, boy, are these numbers the same?
I'm sure when we have a presentation, we would want both of them here, just like we did tonight.
I'm
Or
kinda-
the proxy or something.
I'm kind of with Bill.
Remember that they're
Narrow
not going to
it
build
down.
it.
Huh?
They're not going to build it.
Oh, I know it.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it. But they're going to be directing the working drawings. They're going to have a lot to do with the working drawings. I'll bet you.
Let's narrow it down. I think.
Let's narrow it down, however you want to handle it.
I don't know. Do we have a motion?
Nobody seconded it yet. Nobody seconded it yet.
That motion,
Oh, God,
that motion died.
Okay. So, Madam Secretary, the motion is, and it's been secretary, we're going to continue to look at the alternates for number 3, alternate number 3, and wetlands number 3. And then we're going to figure out how we're going to do it, how we're going to take the look, okay?
No, it still doesn't work.
That's a useless
We'll
motion.
we'll do it tonight.
Well, just see if there's a second.
You got
It's
it
already been
seconded.
seconded.
It's been seconded. Okay, roll call, please.
Director Corolla?
No.
Director Hunt?
No.
Director Fletcher?
Yes.
Director Kellogg?
Yes.
President Duncan?
No.
I move we direct staff to get an additional engineering bid at this time. Since Lee and Rowe has completed their contract and their personnel has changed dramatically since we started with Lee and Rowe, go out, find a new engineering company, take the information that is at hand, have them develop a cost structure with life cycle structures, all of the things that are wanted by that end of the table. That's my motion. At a cost not to exceed $50,000.
And you're not excluding row. They could be in on it, right?
If staff wants to, I'm looking for them to get one engineering firm to give a bid on both things. It's not hard.
Right.
They're going to go out and do the analysis. They aren't going to build the thing.
Yeah,
Lee and Rowe won't build it.
exactly.
Neither will Ron.
Okay. Is
I
that a
don't
good
think-
motion, George?
I can take care of second that.
I mean, is he satisfied? Did we get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? You understand what we're doing?
Have her repeat the
Discussion.
motion. I understand it.
Lee and Rowe then still could be in the,
If this motion passes, he set an amount. So
50,000.
staff and I will send out requests for proposals
Not to exceed.
To engineering firms.
to engineering firms for this next evaluation. And if it's less than $50,000, we can proceed and keep moving forward.
Right.
We'll pick a firm and move.
I would,
I've got a question, the evaluation of what? For
Excuse me, that's not
wetlands?
public participation, or ask public if they want to speak now.
Okay.
I would suggest amending it to 40,000.
I'll second the amendment.
He suggested, he didn't make the amendment. Yeah.
George wants to
Yes.
third it.
If we're going to evaluate it from engineering firms, we're not going to get it done tomorrow. So instead of guessing what it's going to cost, we'll develop an RFP. It'll be due by the May board meeting, and you'll get to pick which firm we proceed with. How's that?
That's very good.
Just see what they come in with dollars.
Yeah.
Okay, then forget the amendment.
So you
I'll
want
make
to
the amendment to get rid of the 50,000.
I make an amendment to get rid of the $50,000.
I'll second it.
Okay, he seconded.
Okay.
Okay,
To 40,000, right?
No.
getting rid of the 50.
We're getting rid of dollars altogether.
George is going to put it out, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I buy it.
And we'll just evaluate it in May.
And that's
Okay.
a great motion.
Okay.
All I wanted to do was relook at it again. It will be
Okay,
good.
we'll vote on the amendment, please. All those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Okay, now we'll vote on the motion as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any ayes, noes?
No,
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
You even voted an aye for a change.
Oh,
Okay.
I do it all the
No,
time.
I was talking about
him.
Ken.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now, are we off of this subject?
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Okay.
Oh, thank you, engineers.
Should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
That's a great idea.
Let's come back at 9 o'clock.
We are never going to get this thing done.
Having too much fun. Okay, item number 5B.
Could I use item 6B to introduce Dustin? Because that's what I talked to him about on the phone. 6B, report of Director Kellogg regarding discussion.
Okay, that'd be
Okay.
fine.
I called up Dustin and talked to him about financing and competitive bidding and so forth. And Dustin offered to make a presentation to the board, and I thought that was a great idea because I'm not very good about legal matters. So that's what we discussed, and then I got a hold of Georgiana and told her that Dustin would be calling, and Dustin called maybe within a half hour and said he would do this at my request. So that's
You
one-
paying for it?
No, the district's paying for it, like usual, Larry. And so that's why it's on there.
But couldn't this have been gotten from
Okay.
in-house?
Well, no, this is a board topic now, right? This has been opened.
No,
So-
we're talking about the report right now.
I know, we're talking about item 6B.
No. Yeah,
That's what he
6B.
just said, okay.
Right, we're talking about 6B.
So I have a question for Bill.
Okay.
And the question is, I understand that per policy, you called up the president of the board, told him that you needed to go seek legal counsel. And my question to you is, we gave that out, that avenue of approach, for exigent circumstances. And so what I want to know is, what was the exigent factor that caused you to go directly to legal counsel instead of asking the board in this meeting to approve this request to spend this money?
Because I didn't have to.
That's the only reason?
No, I wouldn't bring it up to the board. I wanted to have it on the agenda and discussed at this meeting because we were talking about all this money, and I wanted to know what we could or couldn't do.
Because you didn't have to.
Competitive
What
bidding.
our board policy says that we put in place was that the directors would come to the board and seek permission if they wanted to go and talk to legal counsel, and the board would make a decision as to whether that
No.
was yes or no.
No.
That's what we said in the policy. Read it.
Well, no.
The out on that is that a board member, if he felt there was an exigent circumstance that he needed to go contact him right away because something was urgent, if you don't know what exigent means.
It was urgent to me.
Oh, to you.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking that the board needs to take a look at our policy and fix it so that no board member can go to legal without first bringing it through the board for
Well,
decision.
shouldn't we have George do that too, if we're going to have all the board members there, Ken, and be fair about it?
We could make the motion if you want to.
That George has to
I'm just
explain to
saying
us
that I
before
think that we need to
go
bring
to
it up.
legal counsel?
I want it on next month's agenda to discuss the revision of that policy so that we can get some control around here for somebody who's not frivolent with the public's money like you seem to be with spending all these thousands of dollars with legal counsel. Bill?
Oh, how much was it, Dustin? We talked maybe 10 minutes?
I actually have no idea. The call was 12 minutes, 10 minutes. I have no idea. But the research itself, it's not going to be a huge amount of money, but
It's money.
Something.
It's public money.
Well, my question is, couldn't he have gone to somebody in staff and gotten the same information?
I don't know. Do you know the circumstances under which the district's required to competitively bid?
I know pretty well. If there's bond money, if there's state grant money, if it's not PID's money, then it has to competitively bid, and it has to go to the lowest responsible bidder.
Does Kevin know this?
One of the questions, that I had was, what makes you think that we don't follow this policy?
What?
Why are you questioning him? Why are you asking?
I know the answer to my question.
What is it?
Well, because you saw all the numbers in this report that we had up on the wall here a little while ago, and the numbers didn't look favorable for maybe one selection or the other that maybe you would like to have. So then the competitive bid process came into your mind, and
Actually,
what makes you think we don't follow this policy?
First, your first supposition was wrong, because I hadn't seen the graph with the costs figured out yet. I didn't even know it existed. George gave it to me the next morning after a communications meeting we had here. When I called Dustin, I didn't know anything about that and had no idea. So I didn't know who was high, low, in between. And I thought, okay, I need to know about the competitive bidding thing. And I don't have it, and I don't have it in my files. So I went to legal counsel because this is something I felt he could readily answer and give it to me. And that's it.
Couldn't you have just asked for a copy of what is our policy for competitive bidding? I'm pretty sure it reads pretty straightforward, because every place that does business that has to perform competitive bidding has it spelled out. Is it not in writing somewhere? Do we keep that book on premise? Is that on something on premise that we have here? Could be printed out in probably just a matter of seconds with the technology we have today? Okay.
See, Bill, the problem is that if people tend to
Sick of this money going.
do things that the rest of the board are not in favor of, that's why you come up with these strict policies. I have, and when I question my clients, I have 30 questions that I ask my clients, and they've all come up because something's happened in the past. And what I'm saying is if I think you're out of line by calling the attorney on this fact. I think you were out of line on the last time. But the problem is you were following policy. But what happens is you're going to make it so we're going to make the policy stricter.
Last time he didn't follow policy.
Last time he didn't follow policy. But this time he did, and there's nothing we can do about it. But what you do is you make us go back and make the policy stronger so that you don't have all the rights you do. My question is if this was your dime that you were spending, would you have spent it? I know I wouldn't have.
Would you have maybe asked for, is there a copy of that competitive bid policy that we have for free or purchasing? Okay. Is there a copy of that I can read?
I gave a speech last time. The district comes first. That means that I don't spend a dime of the district's money before I think about it. Then the customer and then the employees. That's the way I look at it. Everyone looks at it their own way. I don't have a personal agenda. That's the way I deal, because I'm looking out for, I want to save the district money so we don't have to raise the rates. And that's how I do everything.
Well, I think that's very good, Larry.
But and the thing is what you're doing is you're causing us to make policies that'll put you, so you'll think the way we do.
What concerns me is that it seems that you keep bringing up to the public that the rest of the board doesn't know our duties. We have no idea what's going on in the district. We don't know what their policies are. And meanwhile...
Well, you did say that we didn't know what the manager was making.
Yeah. What do you mean?
We say that.
You said that to the Post.
Meanwhile, one of the people that seems to be going around policy constantly is you. And you need to adhere to the policies that we have set forth.
I just did.
Okay, let me ask Larry. When Bill called you and asked for your permission to go to legal counsel, did he ask for your permission or inform you he was going?
I don't have to ask
I don't think
permission.
he
I just inform him.
He told me he was going to.
On something that was probably an emergency, yeah, he'd probably say, I really have a critical issue, I need to go, Larry.
He didn't say it was an emergency. I told him, can't you get it through staff? And he says, well, I don't want to do it that way. And there's nothing I could do about it, Mr. President.
Well, that way, to me, that way rings free. The other way cost money. So we sat here tonight. We had a lot of your constituents in here because you're concerned that we're spending their money. Is there a different line that we're drawing in the sand when we're spending their money to go to legal counsel? Is that a different thing? Because I don't recall that I've called Dustin and spent any of the district's money. I go to staff and ask a simple question, and then usually somebody gives me an answer that it's either on paper or I can understand. You have two different examples of the exact same thing. You have one standard. If we're going to spend money on this, anything that we're going to do, make sure all the people are here to say, nope, we can't do that. But you want to run around policy and go to legal counsel to get something as simple as a piece of paper that explains how we purchase items.
No, this is really interesting.
It is not a complicated process.
No, it's really interesting. We're talking about a few $100s and Dustin's got all the codes in here. I doubt if we have that in our bylaws where we have it. I have a bylaws copy at home I looked at. But when I first got on the board, we were spending maybe $1,000 a month for legal counsel. Now we're spending anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month.
Oh, I don't think we were ever spending $1,000. I think it was always. In fact, I remember $7,000 and $8,000 a month.
I know you were on the board when it was long. When I brought it up the first time, legal counsel being so expensive. Right. But we're still spending at $3,000 to $5,000.
Right, but at that time we didn't have.
I think I have a good idea why.
We didn't have a lawyer present either.
I know why.
Why?
We have the attorney here to keep you under control, so you don't go off the reservation and embarrass the district and the board, cause legal problems, cause staff problems, and cause union problems. That's why.
Okay.
Well, I heard a rumor that was the case. I guess it's now confirmed.
Okay, now we'll go to. I think we've expressed our feelings on 6B. Would you like to say something?
We haven't even heard from the attorney yet.
No, this is just the report.
Gentlemen,
that's right.
Gentlemen. You guys just spent 2 hours and almost give away a $10 million deal to somebody without even getting the other fact, and you're worried about a
sounding
little
like
bit of
Doug.
cost?
We didn't spend any money. We didn't plan on
If
it.
one board member here, and we all know which one it was, would have just selected that end option and forgot about the wetlands altogether. But that person is the one crying the most about a few $100s for a lawyer fee. You need to get priorities. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we'll, thank you for your report, Bill. I hope you understand how the board feels about you doing it. Okay, now we'll go on to 5D, the one we've already paid for.
All right, well, I'll be brief. You have a 3-paragraph description. Basically, the district is required to competitively bid on public works contracts. So this is after you've complied with CEQA. You're ready to do specific design work, or you're ready to break ground. You're only required to competitively bid when the project is funded through bond proceeds or an assessment. George mentioned grants. That's technically not a legal requirement. It's typically a requirement of grant documents. It's a contract obligation. So
It probably comes from the fact that all grants are funded by bonds anyway.
yes. But in any event, the district's practice is to competitively bid almost everything, and it's a good, sound policy. An irrigation district is afforded a lot of flexibility in the law. So, for example, if the district ever wanted to deviate from the typical build process, which is bid, design, bid, build, is that how you built this? Or you got specific design work, you competitively bid,
Yeah,
and then
design, bid, build.
yeah. So if you wanted to, you could deviate from that and do a design build project where you have one firm do both the design and the build work. And
Which we did with Chevron.
you did that with Chevron. Okay. So if you're not funding it through the proceeds of bonds or an assessment, then you don't have to necessarily competitively bid, and you're freer to then do a creative build process.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
a good time to separate professional services. Like they could select an engineering firm and say, you're our firm for the next year.
Yes.
For any project we need design.
Meaning you don't have to competitively bid consultant. It's only public works.
Public work.
Just
Okay.
clarify that.
Okay.
So I assume that when we do pick a project, if that ever happens, that we will probably send it out for some competitive bidding. Because we just don't want to take the first number that we're going to get. We would like to see who comes in the least expensive.
Yeah. Depending on how we fund it, we may not be legally obligated, but I would strongly recommend.
Well, I would think that would be a good practice, though, right? I mean, like, you know, if...
Yeah. And an engineering estimate is not a bid. It's an estimate.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower.
Of course, I always remember the guy who's up in the space shuttle and he says, you know, we're up here and the cheapest guy built this thing. Okay, 5E, mid-year budget review and year-end review reports. Treasurer Phillips.
This is exciting.
Yeah. You have a movie?
We're just setting the time for a special meeting.
Oh, okay.
We were thinking of the week of the 21st, probably the 22nd or 23rd, and we were going to try to do it around 11. Have some lunch for you guys.
Oh, I thought it was 11 p.m.
We do it at 11 p.m.
Yeah, then we can have a midnight snack.
And maybe do some lunch and kind of, I assume it would take maybe 2 to 3 hours, so 11 to 2.
Will you have
The
popcorn?
reason why I like the midday time is it does save the district because there is staff that has to be there, more staff than normal.
Better than evening, yeah.
And most of the staff does skip overtime if they are here after hours.
Mm-hmm.
It does save the district time, or saves the district money from that standpoint, and it's probably cheaper than a lunch during this.
Yeah.
How long will that meeting last, approximately?
2 to 3 hours.
3
3
hours.
hours? Well, I have class up until, on the 22nd, which is a Tuesday of this month, right, April, which is good. I have class up until noon, so I could be here by 12:30.
What's the,
What about the 23rd?
The 23rd, Barb's going to be at Enloe having major surgery, and I should be there, but
okay, let's do it, how about 12:30 instead of work for
on Tuesday, I'll be fine.
That'd be the
Tuesday at
22nd?
12:30?
What's the day?
We'll still give you lunch even.
22nd?
22nd.
22nd of
Even though we passed the official lunch hour?
We'll still give you lunch.
That's Earth Day, is that all right?
Is it what?
Earth Day, is that all right? Not a problem with the holiday?
We can bring some earth from the.
That'll match up with our turbidity.
What's the time?
12:30?
12:30
12:30.
To where?
here,
Here.
No, where, how long?
3 hours.
3 hours, yeah, I'd
2 to
I'd be
3.
fine on that. I have all afternoon if we need to go along there.
I'll check my calendar when I get home.
Let Georgiana know, because she's gonna have to set it for us.
Right. Everyone notified Georgiana.
I'm a yes right at this point.
I'll say yes.
Yes.
I
3,
can say yes to Georgiana, but I'll.
4 yeses. Bill's the only one.
Larry can say yes because it's after the 15th.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's done. We don't need no action, okay? Committee reports. Water Conservation Committee. Director Sepp and Fletcher.
All right, good.
Fletcher's
Fletcher's chairperson on that.
You can chime in too. It's really a joy and pleasure to work with the Water Conservation Committee. And as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about with Jerry being brought on, just a great group of people that are dedicated and really knowledgeable, and it's just been a joy and a pleasure. One of the things that we're planning, and we started talking about this after the first of the year, we're going to be putting on a residence workshop, water-wise, and we're just brainstorming around on it. We got 18 ideas up here, and one of them, we might combine it with the Garden Club on June 7th and 8th, but we'll be doing something with them. But out of these 18 ideas, one of our committee members came up with how to water my yard. Methods to use the water wisely at your property. That's what she said. I just want to know how to water my yard. Come to find out there's a lot of people who want to know how to do that, with the natives and all of that. So we'll be coming with that, and then we've got a series of really great speakers lined up. Mike Speece is the one up from the university, and Dan Alves for the vegetable garden, Nutrilon and Jerry Menden, and Ren Bird and others. And then on May 27th, we've been invited, and George agreed on this one, to participate in a NORMAC, which is a big irrigation supply company in Chico, big barbecue that they have, and it's no cost to us. And we'll have a booth alongside South Feather and Cal Water. And one of the things we'll be highlighting is our Aqua Hawk, plus others. And about a third of the people, I've gone to that before when I was somewhat in that business, about a third of the people who will be there will be landscapers from Paradise. So we will touch a good segment, plus the other people out here. We haven't got the program put together yet, but do they need to approve that we do this? I guess it would be good. Or just do, or what do we do? We've always asked people for permission.
Yeah, it's just a normal public outreach thing. It's not.
Yeah, just a public outreach type thing. But we'll keep you posted on the residential water users workshop that we're putting up, and with some of the ideas that came out of it, I think I know Jim was really well pleased. We'll come up with a real beneficial thing for our residents on this one. And I like that, again, I'm always running around complimenting our staff because I'm always really impressed with them, even though I don't quite a blank bottle on it. Jim is our clerk, and as a chairperson, he really makes it easy because he does an awesome job with the minutes, and thank you, Jim, for what you do on here. Sepp, anything you want to add?
Nope, you pretty much covered it. That was it.
Thank you.
Okay, Butte Local Agency Formation, that's mine. We met on the, where is it thing, April the 3rd, and we went into closed session and we're talking about litigation with Chico, and we haven't done anything about it yet, but we're trying. They're claiming that it's our fault that they did their 62 illegal hookups, and and we're trying to make them straighten it out. And it's really frustrating because they want us to do it for free. But anyway, and as I said before, because of it, we've gone through our reserves, and that's why our dues are going up next year. And then after that, we went to a public hearing, which was the Bocher Street annexation, and we had a good turnout of there. The place was full. There's 22 people, voters, and they're going to protest the annexation, and they'll probably win. But this is an island, and so down the line they're going to get annexed because of an island, because of state law. So it's going to happen one way or the other. And then we did our proposed budget, and like I said before, it's being sent out now to the different organizations, but it's going to give the first increase in 6 years to our employees of 2%. And they've also they did a furlough and went from 4 to 3.5 on the furlough. This new budget is now, we're staffed at 3.5 permanently. They decided that it worked out okay, so they're going to keep it that way. And so basically the big thing is the sewer extension update with the City of Chico. That's my report. Okay, Community Relations Committee, Director Kellogg and Hunt as chairperson.
I don't know when we had the meeting, last week sometime. I didn't bring my notes. I left them on my desk along with some other papers that I had. So I'm without those to report. We went over after as you know, what's going on with the drought and with water conservation. Those were the two primary things. We went over the plan and the ideas about how we're going to outreach to the community, get that message out. They've got the budget. We're working within the budget, and so we're moving ahead with those type things. I just can't give you any of the specifics that we discussed, and if Bill can remember some, or maybe we can get some information there. The other thing that we did is, as we're making a practice of doing, is we get an update on the work that our contractors have provided for us during the lapse of time since the last contract. It's just nice so that we can kind of get a feel for all of these different committee meetings they're sitting in on and how they're really learning the pulse of the district. And I think it makes them stronger and better able to meet our needs in community relations and reaching out to the public.
Survey? Talk about the survey.
Community survey?
I forget what it was.
Did you want to cover it, Tanya?
We talked about
yeah.
the committee meeting. Did you want to go ahead?
No, please, go ahead.
We talked about some elements of the original CR plan that we presented last October was having a baseline survey where what people felt about PID, how they felt the district was doing its job or not, to help guide the district in its perception by the public, because even though perception is always reality, so that baseline survey was discussed, was something that was part of the CR plan that we brought up last fall, and it was brought up again for consideration by the committee, and there was two differing opinions on that committee as to the timing of that survey.
I felt the survey should be delayed until we got what we worked on tonight, and the issues there I felt were going to be volatile enough that we might have some strong feelings in the community, and I'd rather wait till we got through it, and the people don't have those, and would probably be a better job to pull them on the feelings they have for PID and stuff. And I thought that should be delayed because of that, because of the politics in the community.
Well, we've still got the high politics going on. We haven't made any decisions or any forward motion in regard to getting this process recycled and water done thing. So are we going to wait another month or 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, and then there is no baseline?
In addition, the topic of
help to guide us as we're looking at the conservation thing. So the idea of doing a baseline, which would be a repeated survey, so that in 12 months' time we would go back again. Our goal is we want to make sure that what Cedar Creek is doing for the district is affecting the district in a positive way. And if there was significant disagreement showing in that survey that everybody hated PID more after Cedar Creek started working with them or something, that was a concern of ours. We want to make sure that what we're doing is measurable for the district, and so that's why we're advocating the survey which was mentioned in Cedar.
Well, we're going to be challenging for
It
you.
is.
Since we couldn't come to an understanding in the committee, the board can bring it up now and vote on it if you want.
Well, I don't know if
No, we can't. It's not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda? Okay, fine.
No,
You
it's got,
just asked what had happened, and that's what happened
Yes.
in regards to.
Yep.
okay.
I got to do something better with my notes. Tie them around my.
Put them in your popcorn bag.
There we go.
We also talked about the advertisement that George had arranged for some low-cost advertising in the Post, and that we were putting together.
This thing. Yeah.
Very nice.
where's
Very
that gonna-
comprehensive.
That's a full page ad in the Post.
Oh, wow.
May I speak on this?
Okay.
The ad that you see that I think Georgiana passed out to everybody, you'll see that I close. You'll recognize this better. We were required, the district is required, because after adoption of the resolution at last week's special meeting, that we had to inform the public, and there were many discussions of different ways to do it. Putting it in the billing inserts was, because there was a lot of text, was going to get kind of pricey. We had to do it within 10 days, according to what Dustin tells us. The Post has what they call that legal section, or that part with little tiny type that nobody ever reads. That was going to cost $1,500 in this legal section. And George came to me and he said, is there a cheaper way we can do this? You know, can you come up with some other better way? Maybe an advertisement or something would work. So we got $650, a full-page ad. Not only do we have the legal text with the signatures and everything in the full text, Georgiana gave me the text from the resolution, but we also included what is in the billing insert this time, which explains it in summary and when it goes into effect. So that's what you see there. This is 9-point type, in case anybody wondered, and legal is 7 for everything that I do. So we're bigger than we have to be, because we have a population that's going to matter to. And we can kind of have that overview there, because frankly, I don't think a lot of the public is going to read all the things unless they feel that they have some exception for their watering system or something. So this is going to be running in the Post to meet the 10-day deadline on Saturday. And it'll be a one-page ad.
We only need to do it for one day?
That was it.
And the other thing Mark and Tanya did overnight was put together the mailer that's going to come out with the April bills on the rules and regulations that we adopted for the thing, and she had it prepared overnight. It was excellently done. I think, Kevin, it's going out, isn't it? Or it's been, yeah, it'll go out. So that was it. And actually, Tanya and Dale do most of the work, and they, as far as I'm concerned, they've been doing an outstanding job for our communications from the district.
And Georgiana came over and got my signature.
Oh, to get
At
it
my
out
office.
fast enough.
All right.
Oh, great.
Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda, we're going to skip the general.
Thank you,
manager's
Tanya.
report. He's going to be gone for 30 days. Okay, time for the general manager's report.
Okay, you have my written report. Only thing to add to Tanya's that kind of got missed is Butte County Office of Emergency Services felt that notification and ad qualified for their grant funding, so it didn't cost us $650. It'll cost us $325.
Yeah,
So thanks to Butte County OES for assisting us on that.
Was that John?
Yes.
When I was at, okay, good. There we go.
John Gulsari.
Yeah, I knew I heard something about it.
So we appreciate that. Main thing to cover in my reports, water rights. Like I said, we've got our request for terms of license to the regional board. I think by the time we have our next meeting, Hopefully, we will have some type of response from them. And so I've got, if you remember Ben Ritchie, who's been on hold for quite a while, we have him getting started on the EIR. And so we'll put on an agenda item next month on water rights to bring you up to speed on where we're at and what the terms are and that kind of stuff. The use charge didn't move much, so you know where we're at water-wise. The monthly outlook is not real wet, a couple storms, but nothing of major. So I think the action the board took last week was appropriate, and that's about all I have.
Still a lot better.
I wanted to ask you about water rights.
Yes.
Yeah, it says you have finalized our work on water right analysis and formed our terms of license to the state water. What have we finalized on our water?
That's what I said. I'll present all that next month. I mean, it is what it is. It's a calculation. So I'll go through those numbers on an agenda item next month.
Okay, and the CEQA, he will go ahead and finish this draft CEQA document now?
Yeah, he's going to get started writing the project descriptions, the key thing, and we'll revisit where we're at with the CEQA
we'll
as
have
well.
the report on Little Butte Creek and if I remember right, the CEQA is from the dam down on Little Butte Creek?
Yeah, actually, it's from the confluence of Little Butte Creek and Butte Creek all the way up to including Paradise Reservoir.
Oh, okay. So it covers all of our water below Paradise Reservoir?
Yes.
Thank you.
And who's going to be in charge while you're gone?
Kevin.
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
Kevin knows how to text me in an emergency, and I know how to check my email.
And when will you be back?
I'll be back May 10th.
May 10th. Wow.
Do you get paid while you're gone?
Oh, God, please don't.
If I tried to leave without having paid vacation, I would have to get a request from the board for a leave of absence. So if I'm gone, you know that I've accumulated the appropriate leave.
Okay, legal report.
Have a good time, George.
Yeah.
Okay, George asked that I talk about a recent case that was highlighted in an Aqua publication. Prop 218 case. There's a little-known provision in Proposition 218. I think I've mentioned it to the board before, but it's an initiative power. And what it says is the board can go through the Prop 218 process, propose a rate increase, for example. You won't get a majority protest. The board goes ahead and implements the rate increase. The initiative power is the public could put something on the ballot by acquiring enough signatures and roll back rate increases. So it's been an open question since Proposition 218 was passed in 1996. It's been an open question in the legal field. Well, what's the extent of that rollback power? Can they just say our rate will be 1 penny a month, where it essentially would destroy the district financially? And this recent case, an appellate court says, no, you can't roll back rates to a level that essentially would defund the district. So it doesn't completely close that door. There's, I would say it's a limited precedent, but it's a good precedent in our favor if we ever had to deal with that. So that's one item. The drought continues to keep me extremely busy. I heard today that the Feather River districts out west here, southwest, they exceeded the curtailment provision in their agreement, so they're entitled to 100% contract supply. But the state of California is indicating that they're going to breach the agreement. So,
Shocker.
what's that?
Shocker.
Shocker.
Yeah.
So look for that in the newspaper. I keep waiting for this drought to end, and it's just not happening. The last item, I am have been asked to be a presenter at Aqua Conference, and I'm always hesitant to do these things for fear that any opinion I take will be imputed to my clients. So I'll give the standard disclaimer that any view I express will be my own, not any of my clients. But the topic is water transfers, which you're not directly involved in. But I'd encourage you to come and give me a standing ovation. I need some moral support.
Where's it at?
Monterey.
Can we get that on district funds, please?
But I'm on a panel. I'm the only seller representative, so they're ganging up on me.
I was at their meeting that they had here. They're quite a group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I have, unless there's questions.
Question on 218, we were discussing at the break. It's 50% of the ratepayers that have to protest, not 50% of the people who are protesting.
Yes. So let's say you're charging an ABC rate. You only need the A's to protest it. So this happens in a district with a lot of drinking water customers and a handful of ag customers, and you single out an ag rate that it doesn't take much to get a majority protest as to that aspect. Does that answer your question?
Well, and so of our A rate, any rate that we have, if 50% of the customers protest, they win? Is that the way it works?
It depends on how they're treated. At least this is my interpretation. So we have B rate customers, and then we have business rate customers, but they are all treated identically because the businesses only increase based on meter size in proportion to a residential meter. So in my estimation, all of those people are one group.
Oh, so it has to be.
All of the A's would be one group.
So you'd have to have over 5,000 protests, right? Because we have 10,000 customers.
Go to the ag.
But we do have
Go to the ag.
We do have irrigation. We have residential irrigation. I mean, that is a question that I never posed to Dustin.
Oh.
If the board decided to eliminate residential irrigation, is eliminating and treating them like everyone else a Prop 218 protest option?
I think they'd have to get the true majority protest of all affected. So
He thought it was just if the majority. He thought they would vote, but it's not. They have to.
That's on the assessment side.
Okay, to get this clarified, and I've just asked for we're going to mail a ballot to each meter.
I call it a notice.
We mail them a notice.
Or a notice, right. And they ballot on that notice?
No.
No, there's no ballot. There is an explanation of how to protest.
Okay. And if we don't get
some districts.
I thought we had to have a 50% plus one.
That's on assessments.
Agreement.
Two different processes.
This 218, we don't have to have that. So in other words, if they don't protest the rate increase,
they're voting for it.
They're voting for it. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
And you're not legally required to include a protest form. It's interesting. Some districts decide, well, we're going to go ahead and include it in the packet. Other districts say, no, we're going to make them go to some effort to come to the district or print it off the website or something.
Okay.
Which we did last time. We had it available here, and we had it available on the website.
Okay. Any more questions of legal? Okay, staff and billing reports. Anyone got any questions? Bill, you usually have some.
I think I concentrated so hard on the water recycling project. I really didn't look at any of the rest of the stuff much.
Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Joe, you need a motion.
Motion.
Oh, you do?
Make a motion to accept the staff and billing report for March 2014.
Second. That's all right, I did it all right.
Oh, you did? Or?
So moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Anyone out there? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. We're going to miss this recess. Okay, now we'll go on to the treasurer's report.
Yeah, my written memo. It was a little early in the month to get numbers put together for this month, so. But everything is running right on budget. Consumption is right. It's pretty close to budget. It goes up and down based on obviously the consumption of the water. One thing I want to remind the board is that this month our new billing procedures go into effect. Therefore, the bill date will be when the bill is mailed. The customer then will have 25 days to pay that bill before any penalties are assessed. The penalties will be assessed when the next bill is mailed. So some customers, if we get them out on the 20th, and we then bill the next month on the 20th, they'll actually have 30 days to pay the bill before a penalty is assessed. But the minimum requirement that we have is 25 days that they have.
And it'll say that right on the bill?
That's correct.
Good.
The penalty rate did go down to, I believe it was 2.5%. We also are now charging $10 for 15-day notices that are going to be mailed out to customers. That's a new one. And the other thing is there's just one fee for a seal and unseal. So a seal fee, when somebody's sealed, they'll be charged $50. When their account is up to date, then we will go out there and unseal it for no additional cost to them. So
and $20 for a 48-hour.
$20 for a 48-hour notice.
Hanger.
I think that was already the same.
Yeah, I think that was. I was going to say that didn't change, did it?
How hard would it be to put these rates in with the billing?
We did an article on them.
Yeah.
To do a full thing, it would just be another stuffer in there.
Okay. You don't think it's necessary?
I don't think so. We always drive them to the website.
I had a lot of complaints, and one of them was for me. I got my bill on the 15th, and I thought it was due on the 19th. Because the month before it was due on the 19th.
Right.
And I thought, boy, that's...
We've
So-
explained that to a few customers. And after we explain it, their anxiety goes down. So.
Only for you, Larry. We made that billing cycle.
Yeah.
That was just your bill.
Thanks.
Kevin, does it show a due date?
Yes.
It didn't before.
It didn't before
due
because
upon receipt.
it was so hard to calculate it. But yeah.
Or does it give a delinquent date?
Yeah. Yeah.
Delinquent if
25
not paid
days after
by-
the 25 days after the
No,
bill.
but does it specify the dates?
No.
Okay.
Oh, it does?
It does now.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it just said 25 days after the billing date.
No, now it will calculate that. So
Oh,
it's
all
got
right.
numbers to calculate. So
Oh, good.
if it's mailed on the 20th, then it'll
I'll make it
calculate
nice and
25
clear.
days. Yeah.
Friendly.
Yep. Aquahawk is currently monitoring our data and creating criteria to help our customers monitor their usage and bill. So they have all of our data, and now they're doing the tweaking of it. We actually are currently using Aquahawk on our side to look at major leaks and getting a priority of what the leaks are, so we have on a daily basis what we need to go out and prioritize. So it's already saving us time and effort from that side, and it's going to be just as successful on the customer side. I have no doubt in my mind. So
They're doing what?
Aquahawk
Is doing what?
They're already giving us leak notification data.
For us or for the customer?
For us. So meaning that if there's a major leak out there, what we do is either contact the customer or have somebody go out there and contact them in person. But what they're doing is prioritizing them for us, so we don't have to go through and prioritize them on a daily basis. They're doing it for us based on the data coming in on a daily basis. So they're already working for us on our side, and they will be working for the customer on their side shortly.
They're having no problem interfacing with Datamatic for the...
Nope, not at all.
That was a question I had on this. It was under B5. It's Aquahawk is currently monitoring our data and the customers monitor their usage. Is it already online for our customers?
Not yet. No, they're
$10,000
working with us.
all that.
They're working with us to see how we want our customers to see it and what we think is useful for them. They have to get our rates in there so that they can do projections and how and monitor it. So they're working on getting historical data in and stuff like that, but they're working for us right now. So
They're building a database so that the customers, so they know what to give the customer.
When will it be ready for customers?
I'm
3
going to
months.
guess in 2 months. Yeah.
It's still going to cost us.
They already have a month under their belt, so their
Oh, so
timeline
3 months was right.
months. Yeah.
We're still looking at like a $10,000 hookup fee for that. Remember?
It's already paid.
It's already done.
Yep.
And they weren't done it good. And a 10-cent per month meter charge.
They what?
It was, as I remember, a 10-cent a month per meter.
Yeah. So it's $1,000
$1,000 a month.
$1,000 a month.
But the upfront cost was already paid.
Okay.
It's in the check register.
Yeah. You guys.
Yes, good.
Yeah. So we've already paid that. Christy Park went to a human resources. Christy's our office manager. Human resource conference in Las Vegas last week, 2 weeks ago, and brought back a lot of good information about what large companies are doing with their healthcare and how they're reinventing how healthcare is presented to customers. So we're going to be digging through that and having some options for the board to look at, and for the upcoming negotiations. We have set a date for our opening with the union, which I'll be sitting in, and Emily Lameau from Manassian will be heading it up. And it's the 29th. Yeah, at 10 p.m. or 10 a.m.
Did you say 10 p.m.?
I don't know. Yeah, I know. 10 a.m. So we will hopefully have something to bring back to you in May.
Yeah, and I hope to actually drive it a little faster, at least out the gate, and try and, so expect some special meetings just to deal with negotiations, so we can kind of keep a 2-week cycle going instead of a month-to-month cycle, just to try and keep this moving forward. It's normal under negotiation times that it causes angst amongst our employees, and so if we can strive to come to a conclusion faster, the better it is for everybody.
Speaking about healthcare, I did my first tax return today that paid the investment tax.
Oh, really?
And the Medicare tax. And all those people in Chico that are making that big bucks are going to have to pay it this year.
Mm-hmm. I also will be missing May's board meeting because I will be at the Government Finance Officers Association conference that's in Minnesota this year. So if something is needed from me at the board meeting, I will be available by phone, but I will not be available in person. So I just wanted to give you an update on that.
When's our meeting in May?
May 20.
So George will be back.
Best Treasurer's Report of the year.
Can we
That one
Skype
right
with
there.
him and put his face up there?
We can do, what is that, the FaceTime?
FaceTime.
Yeah.
What's the date?
May 21st?
Thank you.
May 21st, huh?
6:30?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see.
Huh?
It's probably midnight wherever you're going to be.
It will be midnight.
Yeah,
it will be midnight, right?
Texas was bad. Minnesota's going to be worse.
This one's on the same time. It's Central
First
Time.
at 6:30?
You can get some of that caffeinated cheese. They got that back there in Minnesota. You know, that'll keep you up. Yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota.
I again put this in there just so you guys can see the consumption revenue of where everything is currently and what I estimate out. And you can see that we're pretty close to where we estimated from budget standpoint. Again, I'm putting together some budget numbers, and I will call a finance committee meeting to go over those preliminary budget and design. So, trying to think of anything else. If there's questions for me, I can take them.
I'll make a motion to accept the Treasurer's Report as presented.
Second.
Any questions of Kevin before we make the vote? Anyone from the public? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any noes? 5 O's. I mean, 5 A's. 5 O's.
Passes 5-0.
One last thing too is I am investigating financing for the processed water recycle project. Our best bet is the state revolving fund. Right now it's at 1.9%. If we can get everything off of that, that's obviously where we want to go. But if there is some bridge financing that needs to go, I am looking at private placement and bond offerings out there. So I'll be banging the street.
Are we still eligible for bond offerings then?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to do a rate increase to do anything.
No, I know that.
So, yeah. So what you do with a bond offering is you do a rate increase, and then those are eligible to pledge funds. Those revenues are eligible to pledge for those bonds.
Oh, okay.
Security.
So we're looking into the $3 million project, right? We're looking for financing for the $3 million project.
And we can't use the capacity fees for it.
We can, actually, depending on.
I'm just teasing, George. I'm not serious.
Sure you understand.
This monthly surcharge, this thing you put together is great, Kevin, and we don't want to talk about it, but this monthly surcharge for a 20-year deal is, we went with a service fee of that fund out there, that just, yeah. We were talking about it.
You mean we're gonna do it longer than the equipment's gonna last?
Yeah,
We did it with a water treatment plant.
we did it with the water treatment plant.
No questions on the checks. We'll move on.
No questions on the checks? Yeah. I'm ready to make that motion. Don't even joke about it.
Okay, any questions on the check set?
Yes, I had just a couple. Well, I was going to ask Lee and Rowe. There was a check for $98,1755. I was going to say that pretty much in my head seems like we're just about finished up with him. I think that was confirmed by James tonight when he said they're in the hole. Right. So that answers that question. And I think, no, there was one more. iPad page 170, Town of Paradise, check number 46122 for $8,000. That was the bonding for our landscape?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
8,000 for the landscape.
Yeah, I had that same question. What was that?
8,000 for the landscape.
For the landscaping.
They allowed us
we
to
don't
put
have to do it.
Allowed us to put it into bond instead of planting the landscaping. Now.
We don't have to plant it and have it die because there's no water to water.
That came from a lovely meeting that we were at, that Larry and I and George were at. So
The one-sided meeting?
no, that was a completely.
Completely.
That was 50-50.
Town.
That was a 50-50 give and take day.
Only time the town calls a meeting is when they got a bone to pick.
That was it for me.
Wonder how they made out tonight.
Ken?
None.
None? Bill?
What?
Questions on the checks?
No, I didn't read it. It's like I didn't do the other rest of it. I'm just trusting Kevin to know.
Oh, wow. All that money he's making.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Doug?
This was your month.
I have under
Policies.
Tyler Technologies, there's a maintenance agreement. And I'm assuming that's for a year because it's from 4/14. It's check number 6203 from 4/14 to 3/15 in $22,600.
What page was that?
Is that for the
What page?
That's our annual
170?
maintenance. Yeah, it's for a year.
for a year? And that's this out of the sky meter reading.
No, it's our accounting
Oh,
software.
counting, okay.
And it keeps
That was
all-
Tyler?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. I
That's
passed that
just
one
what
over.
We'll pay every year for.
And then I have another question, and maybe you should have asked this when you were there. On our employees' retirement, if they get overtime, do we pay retirement on their overtime? In other words, okay, let's say they have their gross check in a month.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Do we pay, and their gross check would be their overtime if they get overtime or whatever it is?
They don't get overtime. They don't get retirement on overtime.
Okay,
only
just
on
their base
regular
pay.
scheduled time.
Yeah, I had that.
The treatment plant gets retirement on scheduled overtime because of their schedule.
Yeah.
That was negotiated through the union.
Okay.
As a general rule, overtime does not have retirement attached to it.
And you said that was scheduled overtime.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But the directors we get retirement on our overtime, right?
Yeah.
That's all you get.
Would that start at? Would that start
All
at?
that we're paid for.
6:31.
Yeah, right.
That's all I have there.
Okay. I move the approval of general fund check numbers 46122 through 46240 for the month of March 2014, totaling $557,298.91, exclusive of voided check numbers 46131, 46133, and 46152, and authorization of a similar amount allowing or adjusting for extraordinary budget or board-approved items during the month of April.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Director's comment. Bill.
I actually don't know George's salary. I couldn't, if somebody asked me, I couldn't tell him exactly what he makes. And that's probably what happened. And I just don't know. Rather than telling an inaccurate thing or a guess, I probably just said, I don't know. And that's the truth of it. People that come here have their own minds. I don't instruct them on their opinions or ideas. I do ask people to come because I say we need public input, but I do not know what they're going to say. And so if their idea is that I'm rounding up a bunch of people to have my opinions, I'm sorry, that's not it. I just want to have public here to give their input. I think it's important on especially the issues we talked about tonight. And the last one here, I'm thinking about asking the attorney, can the district actually make up a rule of conduct that concerns the conduct of one director, as is in the minutes now, since you guys said that's what it's all about? So
It would be all directors.
Be all directors, won't be one.
It would apply to all of us.
No.
that's not what you said.
Well, this is just comments anyway, so
Right.
we can't read.
Okay. Doug?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Ken?
No comments.
Sep?
Wait, I take that back.
Okay. I wondered what you were going to do.
I want to make a comment.
Time's up.
No, I got lots of time. We got 2 more hours. And that is that the board seems to put a lot of praise on the staff, good employees, sharp, taking care of our business, from the treatment plant to distribution, office, management. We rely upon staff's recommendations. They're the ones who know this business much better than we do. We have oversight of the big dollars. And I think that when all of staff comes together in a united front and gives us an opinion about which way they think is the best direction for the district to go, the board members, if we're going to go against that, I think we need to have some very strong reasons for ignoring staff's recommendations. I don't see how we can applaud them on one hand and then vote down their recommendations in another. I've seen it happen time and time again here with this board, and I think we need to change our ways. Maybe we don't have good staff. Maybe we should just change them all. Get rid of them. If we don't trust them, if we aren't going to build what they want, if we don't think they have the best interest of the district at heart, then we should get rid of that staff and get somebody who will come in and do things right. Or we should support the staff.
Sep?
Well, ironically, that was somewhat along the lines, maybe not quite as pointed, but that's exactly it. We have agreed that these people are professionals in what they do, and yet we seem to go against them a lot. So I am in agreement with Director Hunt. We need to start taking their advice on there. I know the public wants to get some input on it. I think the one thing the public doesn't realize with what we've been talking about is that the clock has been ticking and is still ticking, and we are behind the 8 ball right now when it comes to this project. So I would also like to ask all board members follow all policies of the district. Whether you think they're important or not, let's follow policies. Let's ask questions, maybe a little bit more of that staff that we trust before we maybe go outside the box to get our answers. And then I'd like to ask all of staff or all of the board to be at Kids Fishing Day on the 19th. I think that's important that we're all up there and we make our presence, even if it's for a 10-minute walkthrough. I think it's important that all the board members are up there and that we're seen. So, and that's a great thing. So, when are they going to stock fish?
They stocked the first of them yesterday.
Oh, Tanya, in the back?
April 15th, 10 to 10:30 is the large bait. You're right, Bill, they did stock some yesterday. The big fish, they're coming in, and the big one from the place in Oregon. They're big.
What? I know, really.
I'm doing public relations.
Was that big?
Big fish. Trevor's going to be there, so I know you'll see.
Did we buy some tuna this year? Apparently, there were, or some salmon or something.
They're very large trap. And then there's the second stocking later on in the week from Fishing Game.
Is that when we're going to have the kids there? Are the kids going up like we? I think last year the kids went up during the.
It's Easter vacation, but we're arranging kids.
I mean, he's going to be home with me the whole week? Holy smokes.
Mr. Chair, since Director Hunt said he had no comment and then he backed up and said, I do.
I did before it was passed. I still had
Well,
my
I didn't
time.
want to interrupt you.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, I was done.
Thank you, sir.
Comments, if not, I'll have
As long as it's not in discussing what somebody else has already said.
Well, I don't know if it's discussing or not. I want to compliment the staff, particularly, I think we have an excellent staff, and that's one of the points that I've made. I've always asked George if I could go visit with him, and he highly recommended it. And I've learned a lot about the district, and that's the only way I've been able to do that. But I know for a fact on the staff, they have no question about my questioning their professional ability or knowledge, because they said, you've got to figure it out for yourself. And one of them that put 45 years there in the district, I happened to meet with, he was there, and we were talking about it. He's since retired on this. And he said, what we're doing. So I do compliment them, but I don't follow their guidelines blank cart, and they don't expect me to. They expect me to think as a person, and then when I don't have knowledge, I go to them and ask. And I've done that with Kevin, and I really supported him in his bid for his last position. And when I questioned your situation, you have no problem with that, do you? Say it up loud.
I have no problem with that.
He has no problem. Because we have a working relationship, and that's what I've developed with all of these people. So they don't expect me to carte blanche say, you said it, it's good. Well, anyway. And I got an idea we'll be going with a lot of their personal input, because we don't have to fire anybody, Hunt. We got a top-of-the-line staff. I've been working with staff for 60-some years at Benoit, and they're very knowledgeable. And when I question their thing that they put out here tonight, they're not taking it personally. They would not do that, I know for a fact. Because I've asked them. In fact, I asked them tonight. I wouldn't expect them to tell me they'd take it personally, but I know they did. Because I've done a lot of research on this district since I started. And I think you all really want to know that. Never sticking my nose into anything that I couldn't. Thank you, Mr. President.
I think you outstepped your bounds a little bit.
No, you're screwing the pet food.
Anyway, there's no public discussion on this. This is for directors only. I'm a tax preparer and accountant for 40-some years, and I know my accounting. I don't know PID's engineering and that stuff, and I don't allow people to draw salaries that they do and question what they do. It's to me, it's out of line. And if anyone thinks that we think that the public is here because some director asked him to come here and support him, then you must be paranoid, because I don't think that at all.
Thanks, Larry.
That's my comments. We are adjourned.
Very good.